Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to the July 13th Matthews Board of Commissioners meeting. This will be our regular meeting. We didn't have an early meeting tonight. I'd like to remind everyone that due to Mecklenburg County's COVID-19 stay-at-home order, this meeting of the Matthews Board of Commissioners will be conducted remotely using the Zoom virtual meeting platform. The town of Matthews is committed to transparency and robust public participation during these challenging times. I'll remind the commissioners that when we vote on each item, it'll be by a roll call vote, meaning each member will be polled to individually state their vote for the record and also raise their hand or otherwise indicate visually how they're voting. So with that being said, we'll move on. Tonight we have Universal Society of Hinduism President Rajan Zed to give our moment of reflection. Mr. Zed, sir.
Thanks, Mayor Higdon and the Board of Commissioners for having me. I shall be reading in Sanskrit from ancient Sanskrit scriptures, some as old as 1500 BCE, and then interpret in English. Om Bhur Svah Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. We meditate on the transcendental glory of the Deity Supreme, who's inside the heart of the earth, inside the life of the sky, and inside the soul of the heaven. May He stimulate and illuminate our minds. Astoma Sadgamya, Tamsoma Jyotirgamya, Mrityor Mamratam Gamya. Lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness to light, lead us from death to immortality. Tasmada Sakta Statam Karyam Karma Samachara Sakto Hyacharan Karma Parma Panoti Purusha Karmaneva Hi Samsiddhi Mastita Jankadya Loka Sangreha Mevapi Sampashankar Tumrahasi. Strive constantly to serve the welfare of the world. By devotion to selfless, one attains the supreme goal of life. Do your work with the welfare of others always in mind. Om Saha Navavatu, Saha Nobnaktu, Saha Viryan Karba Bahai, Tejasvi Nava Dita Mastu, Ma Vidvisa Bahai. May we be protected together, may we be nourished together, may we work together with great vigor, may our study be enlightening, may no obstacle arise between us. Samni va kuti, samna hirdayani va, samna vastu vo mano, yatha vasu sahasti. United your resolve, united your hearts. May your spirits be at one, that you may long together dwell in unity and concord. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zed. We'll move on to agenda item number 3. We'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we move on to the next agenda item, I want to announce that we have a special guest with us tonight, former president and CEO of Novant Health Matthews Medical Center, Roland Bebo. Hello, Roland.
Good evening.
And it is my great honor on behalf of the governor tonight to present you with the Old North State Award, which is one of the highest awards that a civilian can be honored with in the state of North Carolina. And the little script at the top says, for dedication and services beyond expectation and excellence to the great state of North Carolina, and on behalf of the citizens of this state, I, meaning the governor, Roy Cooper, bestow upon Roland R. Bebo the Old North State Award. Congratulations, Roland. Well deserved, my friend. I'd like to say a few words.
I would. Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to thank leadership of the town, certainly starting with the mayor, both past and present. And I must say, I've just been blessed to be part of an amazing team at Novant Health Matthews Medical Center. and all the partners within the community. As you know, it's great to be the face of something if everything's going great, and if it's not going so great, obviously it's still to be the face of the organization. So I do want to give a shout out to all the team members at Matthews Medical Center and the leadership team that spent 12 years there. And obviously the response from the citizens of Mecklenburg County and the utilization of our services at the hospital. So it definitely is my honor, and certainly very humbled to receive such an award. And as we said a few weeks ago, I was so fortunate not to only receive one key of the town of Matthews, but two. One certainly for myself personally, as well as for the medical center. So thank you, Mayor, for taking time out of the busy agenda that you have and running the town, and for this amazing recognition. I'll definitely remember it for the rest of my life.
Well, fantastic. And I know I speak on behalf of many Matthews residents and certainly all the people, officials from the town that are on this call tonight. We welcome you back at any time. I understand you're still in Charlotte right now, so anytime you want to stop by for a coffee or lunch or a glass of wine, you're always welcome. I always like to catch up with you. Best of luck to you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Same to everyone on the call tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Sir.
Before we move on to the next item, I think I was remiss in not introducing the folks that are on the call tonight, so I'll go back and do that. We have Commissioner Dave Bland, our town attorney, Charlie Buckley, Mayor Pro Tem Renee Garner, Commissioner Larry Whitley in his police uniform tonight, highway patrol uniform, Commissioner John Urban, Town Manager Hazen Blodgett, Assistant Town Manager Becky Hawk, Commissioner Ken McCool, Commissioner Jeff Miller, and we have a few other town employees. Town Clerk Lori Canapino doesn't have her camera on. Some others are coming on. Our Planning Director Jay Camp, Chief of Police Clark Pennington, and our Fire and EMS Chief Rob Kinnenberg. So thank you. I'm sorry if I missed anyone else, but I want to make sure I introduced you. We'll go on to item number 4. I want to take just a moment to recognize our friends in our sister city, St. Maxime. Who on the current board has been there? Jeff, you've been.
Yes, sir.
And Hazen, our town manager. We have a sister city, St. Maxime, France, and I want to recognize them and recognize their friendship, and also that tomorrow that they will celebrate Bastille Day. Bastille Day is very similar to our own Independence Day. It marks the beginning of the French Revolution when the people in Paris stormed the Bastille, which was a large fortress that had some political prisoners and gunpowder and ammunition and other things, and it kind of started the French Revolution. So we want to wish our friends in St. Maxime a very happy Bastille Day. I'm sure they'll have a lot of fireworks and parades similar to what we do here on July 4th. So wanted to pass along our good wishes. Next, I'd like to move on to agenda item number 5, present a proclamation in recognition of the Matthews Police Department. We are currently experiencing some very difficult times. There's a lot of racial tensions in our community and in the state and in the country. Also, with COVID-19, our police employees are under a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, and we wanted to make an effort to show our Matthews police employees how much we appreciate them and that we have their back, and that they're great folks and we really appreciate them. I would like to give some credit here that we were looking for a public way to show our appreciation. It was Commissioner Urban that suggested a proclamation. I'm going to present this to Chief Pennington, and I had the great honor of visiting with all the shifts week before last, all the shifts of our police employees, and got to personally tell them how much we appreciate them. I want to present this proclamation tonight, and I just want any of our police employees that may be listening, as well as a chief, to know how difficult this was to write with 7 authors, because we went through several revisions of this, and I think we got it right, but our heart is in the right place. So I'm going to go ahead and read this, proclaim this to our community and especially to our police employees. Whereas we, the town of Matthews, Mayor and Board of Commissioners, recognize the important conversations about racial justice and the scrutiny of police department policies and actions that are occurring across the country. And whereas we know the Matthews Police Department stands firmly with us against racism, bigotry, and hate in any form. And whereas we support the Matthews Police Department's commitment to transparency and open dialogue, as well as ensuring safe and equitable treatment for all community members and police officers alike. Whereas Matthews Police Chief Clark Pennington has demonstrated this commitment by publicly responding and discussing the department's policies and directives related to these topics, including internal affairs protocols related to both compliant and disciplinary procedures, the Office of Professional Standards, including departmental training, use of force protocols and de-escalation techniques, and hiring practices, among other topics. And whereas this commitment to continuous improvement is further evidenced by the department's ongoing work to align all policies and practices with the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, CALEA, standards and 21st century policing strategies, including the planned formation of a Chiefs Advisory Committee. And whereas Matthews police officers demonstrate professionalism on a daily basis as they perform their duties with compassion, integrity, and respect for all citizens, the department is a model for other law enforcement agencies and a source of great pride for the entire Matthews community. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that we, as the Mayor and Board of Commissioners, wish to publicly thank the men and women of the Matthews Police Department for the commendable service they provide to our community on a daily basis, and extend to them our sincerest support, respect, and gratitude for their commitment to making Matthews a better place. And myself and all the commissioners will sign this document, Clark, and officially present it to you. So thank you very much. Chief Pennington, if you would like to say a few words, you're welcome.
I would. Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of all the men, women for the Matthews Police Department and our sworn civilian and volunteer ranks, I mean, this means so much to us. I think that the public proclamation of the appreciation that you show for us coming from our elected officials means just so much. So we do thank you for taking the time. I know it was difficult when you have 7 authors, but I think after speaking with each of you, it was easy in the presence of you wanted to express that appreciation. So for that, I do thank you, and we look forward to working with you guys.
Fantastic. Thank you. I would also like to say that we had a wee bit of help from staff in crafting this proclamation, so we're not quite that good at authoring. So I want to thank Becky Hawk and Maureen Keith as well for helping craft this, but it really was a effort of love and appreciation. So thank you very much, Chief. We'll move on now to our next agenda item. I'm sorry, somebody say something? Okay. We'll move on to item 6, receive an update on COVID-19 emergency operations from our Emergency Operations Center Commander, Rob Kinberg.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Today is day 125 of COVID-related activity here in Mecklenburg County. Our current counts as of 6 o'clock tonight, the county has experienced 14,739 cases, 168 deaths, 29 continuing care facilities are listed as being in outbreak status. Over the last 2 weeks, we have seen both the good and the bad. Cases have increased at the same rate as the previous 2 weeks at 34%, which is slightly slower than the average we've seen over the last several months. But because of the numbers we're dealing with, each day brings a larger daily case increase. Deaths, fortunately, have increased at a much slower rate, only about 10%. On average, 3,500 people are being tested each day with about a 10% positive result. So that gives us 350 additional people to the rolls each day. The hospitals are experiencing about a 32% increase in hospitalizations. And on Friday, Atrium hit their peak number of COVID patients in residence at the hospital. The social distancing index for Mecklenburg County has seen slight improvement with the governor's mask order, which is a positive sign. Currently here in the town of Matthews, 113 residents are in isolation. Approximately 70 have been in isolation and have dropped off the rolls. Royal Park remains one of the facilities in outbreak status according to the state. Matthews, Charlotte, and Mecklenburg County did enter into a joint proclamation, which we'll talk about in just a minute, reinforcing the wearing of face coverings as a way to slow the spread of COVID-19. The counties, hospitals, and volunteer group, we refer to them as the VOAD, are working on a mass distribution plan for 2 million masks across the county, and Matthews has asked to be an integral part of that plan. On the downside, with increased testing, turnaround time for most tests have increased to 5 to 8 days, and test vendors are again asking the hospitals to prioritize their testing or their patients that are being tested. Emergency services staffing is being stressed due to potential exposures coupled with summer holidays. The big questions for this week are we sliding backwards toward another shutdown? I think we're looking at the experience of our southern neighbors, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, trying to make some predictions about where things are going to go here in North Carolina. Next question is, what's going to happen with school? The governor is expected to release his plan later this week. And the still unending question is, when will bars, gyms, and the like be allowed to reopen? So we are still wrestling with those questions on a daily basis. Our activity remains basically the same. We are involved on a countywide effort each day. We are documenting exposures, burn rates for equipment, and affected employees on a daily basis. We continue to participate in centralized warehousing for protective equipment. We've made regular contact with our congregant living facilities, and we have representation in the EOC on a daily basis. So that is my report.
Thank you, Rob. Are there any questions for Chief Kinneberg? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
Have you had any more incidents in the fire department or in the police department of cases? Or you?
Yes, we have. We've had, I can't speak for the police department. Chief Pennington may be able to. We've had a few cases of members testing positive. Most of those are not job related. They're social spread, community spread related. We are being very cautious in putting employees out or in isolation while we await test results or the 14-day period. We have been in touch with the county public health department's medical director to get the best advice we can about when we should test and when we should release people from isolation so that we can keep staffing levels appropriate.
And without going too in depth into exposures of individuals, I will say we have had a few that have been exposed, none positive, if I am correct to this point. However, I will say that some of our numbers in our residents, the number of residences that are testing positive inside of the town of Matthews has increased slightly.
Thank you.
Any other questions for either of our chiefs? I would just like to add, for informational purposes, I have been having discussions with CMS Chairperson Elise Dashew about what their plans are. Of course, I think everyone, as Rob said, is waiting for the governor's leadership or directive. But essentially, CMS is looking at three possibilities: not going back to school and having all everything online, doing a hybrid model where they teach the children in shifts so the class sizes are smaller, or the last one would be just go back to school as normal, have everybody go back in one time. And I believe what CMS is planning for right now is the hybrid model, because they can shift to either of the other two pretty quickly from that. But logistically, it's quite an undertaking, as you might imagine. So we're all eagerly waiting to see what the governor is going to suggest that we do going forward. I think there probably will be some sort of kids going back to school, I suspect, but we'll have to wait and see. The other thing I wanted to follow up on with part of Chief Kinnenberg's presentation is the joint resolution between Charlotte and Mecklenburg, Charlotte and Matthews, clarifying face covering requirements in town-owned or leased buildings. I did sign this Saturday. Chief Kinnenberg brought it over to my house. This essentially is an amendment to what we agreed to previously, that yes, we support wearing masks, and this extends protection to our town employees and our citizens when they conduct business within town-owned buildings and facilities or leased facilities. So does anybody have any questions about this? I sent you an email regarding this several days ago, and there are 15 different exceptions to the order. So it's not overly rigorous, but would prevent someone, for instance, from going up to the tax office without a mask on and or interacting with other of our town employees without wearing a mask in town-owned facilities. Okay, no conversation on that. We'll move on to the next agenda item. Mr. Town Manager, are there any items to be added to the agenda?
Excuse me, no, sir, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we'll move on to public comment. Lori, do you want to handle this section?
Yes, give me one moment. Jay, if you could bring up the timer too, please. We have 3 public comment speakers tonight. We're going to start with Pastor McLean Faw from Joy Christian Fellowship Church, and I will bring him over in just a moment.
Lori, is the gallery view available tonight? I'm not finding it.
Yes, sir. You should be able to get that from your own side. You can change that to speaker view or gallery view on your own computer.
That's what I've learned in the past, but tonight it's not available. So I'll keep playing around with it or figure it out or just deal with it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Pastor Faw, if you could unmute yourself and put on your camera, please. If you're able to.
I'm trying to get my camera on. It doesn't seem to be working.
It's okay if you can't, sir.
Lori, do you want me to display the timer on the screen?
Actually, can you display the proclamation itself, Jay?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't seem to get a picture.
That's okay, Pastor Faw.
Okay. Am I coming through?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay.
You're welcome to begin.
Thank you.
When you're ready.
This is a resolution of peace and justice. Pastor Leon Threet was going to help me tonight with this presentation, but he was unable to join me. He's out of town. He was actually one of the drafters of this proposal, and I was one of the signers. I think it speaks to the hurt, to the woundedness in our nation on all sides, and I really thought it was a very balanced statement. So I want to read this. We, the undersigned shepherds, pastors, and clergy of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg region and citizens of the state of North Carolina, hereby resolve and affirm the worth, dignity, and humanity of all those who live, work, and serve in our community. That is just the heart of the whole resolution right there. We uphold and defend the constitutional right of our citizens to redress their grievances in an orderly, lawful, and peaceful fashion. We resolve that the elected officials of our city, county, and state would ensure and require that any and all protests and demonstrations be conducted in a lawful and peaceful fashion, as to not recklessly endanger the lives and property of our citizens, nor needlessly jeopardize the safety of our law enforcement. We also resolve that those elected representatives would uphold and respect the liberties, speech, and rights of all the citizens with no biases or partialities to any given group or political persuasion. We further resolve and communicate our sincere gratitude to the law enforcement family for their courageous, selfless sacrifices in an earnest effort to ensure the safety and protection of all the citizens and their property in our community. We also determine that the law enforcement family is a vital, significant, and important part of our community and deserves our utmost respect and honor. We oppose any efforts, actions, or policies implemented by our elected city, county, or state representatives to defund law enforcement. We believe such efforts would needlessly restrict, limit, and hinder police from achieving their sworn duties of protecting and serving our communities, thereby diminishing the safety and welfare of our citizens. We, the undersigned, also resolve and affirm our unyielding commitment and devotion to all the citizens of our city, state. The spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being of all the residents of our state and nation is dear to us and remains to our mission and charge as shepherds, pastors, and clergy, respectfully written and executed.
Thank you, Mr. Faw. Pastor Faw, appreciate that.
Mayor, thank you, commissioners, for allowing this to be read and submitted tonight.
Our next speaker is Mr. Jerry Withrow. Mr. Withrow, there you go. We're going to do an audible timer tonight, so we'll let you know when the 4 minutes is up, sir.
Thank you.
You may begin when you're ready.
Yes, this is in response to agenda item Eastwood Forest Code violations. I spoke to the council last month about this. So my name is Jerry Withrow, and I am a property owner in Eastwood Forest in Matthews. So I want to thank Code Enforcement Officer Carla McCoy and Town Commissioner Jeff Miller for taking their time to meet with me at Eastwood Forest this past month. Mr. McCoy and Mr. Miller personally observed the deplorable conditions of several of the lots that we looked at together in Eastwood Forest. We discussed how the many fine people who do live in Eastwood Forest could benefit from getting these few junky properties cleaned up. I hope that Mr. McCoy's and Mr. Miller's efforts to correct the code violations in Eastwood Forest will be effective and will be supported by the entire town council. Not only will it benefit Eastwood Forest, but it will also benefit the entire town of Matthews. Those are my comments, and I think you'll hear more about the agenda item when it comes up at Eastwood Forest Code violations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Withrow.
Okay. Our next speaker is Margie Owens. Ms. Owens is phoning in. Ms. Owens, yes, we are ready to go when you are, ma'am.
Okay, I appreciate very much anything that you could do, y'all could do for us down here in this Eastwood Forest Mobile Home Park. But it's just the people that live in here, a lot of them are good people, but then we got these people that just don't care. We're tired of all these empty mobile homes. They're just places for the drug houses, you know, and the homeless people, but there's the people that always wants to go out and steal and you name it. And the people that's just, they're bringing all kind of clutter, just piling the yards up. They got cars and stuff. I mean, this one house in front of me's got like 4 cars out in the yard. It's not even using the front yard. Just sit there year after year. I mean, it looks so trashy. They don't know how to take their trash cans in. They sit out there on the side of the road the whole weeks at a time. some of them's got 4 and 5 cans and not supposed to have but one of each. And they just don't care. I mean, they just so trashy. And it'd be nice if there'd be some rules could be set around here where people can start, cleaning up a little more, making it look nicer, for the people that do care in here. Now, anything y'all could do for us to help us out to get rid of all these empty trailers that people just, staying in and running out stealing and, doing drugs, and then the cars jumped all in the yards and they go out, dumpster dive in and come home, bring all kind of stuff home. You would not believe the 3 trailers is just in front of me. It's got stuff piled all over the yards, the front, the back, where they just go and get stuff from them dumpsters and stuff and then bring it and throw it all over the yard, and that's where it stays. And then these junky cars, like I say, we're just desperate. We need somebody to help us out and start setting some rules and make people do better about getting rid of all this junk in their yard and setting their trash out at a decent time and using as many cans as they're supposed to, not 5 or 6 of them. And it'd be so nice. Anything y'all could help us to do down here in this mobile home park and make it look better for the people in here that are decent. It makes it look so trashy. It just looks like the whole trailer park's is trash, but it's not. And if you just ride all around the whole trailer park, you'll see what I mean. And all the stuff people got, piled in their yards and have trashed up. There needs to be some rules. And, one man that owns a bunch of trailers, he's just a slumlord. He don't care. He just rents. He don't pass no rules. He don't make people do nothing. Just hand me my money every month. Now, I appreciate anything y'all could do. And I guess that's about it.
Thank you, Ms. Owens. We appreciate your comments.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Bye-bye.
Lori, do we have any additional people that wish to make a public comment?
No, we don't, Mr. Mayor.
All right, let's move on to agenda item number 9, recess the regular meeting for public hearings on applications to amend the Unified Development Ordinance and land use map of the town of Matthews.
So moved.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Whitley. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner McCool. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland, how do you vote, sir?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
And I vote affirmative as well, so that passes unanimously. We'll move on to agenda item 9A, zoning application 2020-710 Inner Peaks, to change the text in the UDO table 505.2-7 to add P under the B-3 zoning district to allow indoor commercial recreation not otherwise listed as a permitted use in the B3 zoning district, continued from June 8, 2020. Jay Camp, are you going to take this, or Mr. Will?
I'll be taking this one, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Inner Peaks Climbing Center is requesting a change in the table of 505.2 to allow the use indoor commercial recreation not otherwise listed as a permitted use in the B3 zoning district. However, on July 1st, the applicant requested withdrawal of the text amendment application, and at this time. Staff recommends that the request be withdrawn at this time, and it has been communicated that Inner Peaks will be pursuing this at a later date.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to withdraw this application.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Urban. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Bland. We'll do a roll call vote again. Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
I vote affirmative as well, so that passes unanimously. That will be withdrawn. Thank you, Rob. Let's move on to 9B, zoning application 2020-711 Christ Life Church to change the conditions in that certain DHCD district located at 1641 Matthews Township Parkway and being the Christ Life Church property and further designated as tax parcels 193-292-23 and 23E to allow ballrooms, banquets, or meeting/catering halls as a permitted use. This also was continued from June 8th. Mary Jo.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, board members. Yes, this application had been continued because of the applicant's concern with having meetings for, due to COVID-19. So this evening, we're moving forward with the request. They are asking for a change in conditions from existing BHCD to additional BHCD. The property is located at 1641 Matthews Township Parkway. You'll see the star on the zoning map. That is in front of Pace's apartments and adjacent to Aqua Tots and across the street from a portion of Novant Health. The building has a dry cleaner in it, and the rest of the building is an existing vacant building. It used to be the hub. Next slide, please, Jay. This shows you the aerial of the building, highlighted in red. Again, Aqua Tots and Premier Plastics is to the left, and then the apartments are to the back. The applicant is proposing to have a banquet, a catering hall in the portion of the building that was previously held by the pub. Next slide, please. Again, this is the original site information that McLeod Investment Corporation had originally developed the 5.44 acres. First Watch, Aqua Tots Hub, and the dry cleaners are in there. And the existing building and parking will be utilized for the proposed new businesses. In 1993, the property was rezoned from R20 to BHCD and was a general development plan, and minor adjustments would be allowed, is what the original rezoning stated. Here's a couple views of the property. Again, the four areas where you see the glass to the left of the hub is where they'll be using, and the parking and site plan is also shown. Again, no changes to the layout of the parking or the existing building. Next slide, please. These are some proposed interior plans for serving, catering, and banquet halls. These are different options that the applicant may propose on the interior. Zoning has no control as to what happens on the interior. The only concern we have is with parking. Next slide, please. Retail will continue on the parcel as the dry cleaner. All landscaping, screening, and required buffers shall meet the ordinance if there's any additional requirements that need to be submitted. The request is the change in use to ballroom, banquet, or meeting hall, catering hall. The table of permitted uses is attached at the end of this presentation. Staff has highlighted some additional ones that we feel should be removed from the table of permitted uses. The applicant went through these uses originally and crossed off the ones that they felt they did not want to have left on the use chart. Next slide, please. And the development is in accordance with the land use plan. It's the streetscape will remain. They're preserving the mature trees that are along there. Promote mixed use development and plan business parks and this fits that. And prohibit strip commercialization. So they're not adding to any strip commercialization. This rezoning request, if approved for the new use, could complement area existing businesses such as Novant Hospital for a facility to have a small banquet room or teaching facility that does not currently exist in the area. Next slide, please. There were no comments from staff departments, and cross-access parking agreement is already in place. And they held a community meeting on June 21st No neighboring property owners attended, and there were no meeting comments. Next slide. Do we have the permitted use chart?
Yeah, give me one moment. It's on the website, I think.
Yes, sir. And the applicant is here this evening, Mr. Zizos. If there's any questions after we look at the chart.
Mary Jo?
Yes.
While we're waiting to bring up the permitted uses, et cetera, you said it's shared parking, so there's no concern. I'm familiar with that area, and there's no concern with the parking requirements, correct?
Correct. The layout, there's 37 parking spaces in that lot. So they could have, just a second, 100 seats easily, because there's one parking space per 3 seats on that.
Okay. And are they responsible at all? I saw in some of the notes about the landscape buffer along the parkway. They're not responsible for changing any of that, correct?
Correct. There's nothing that needs to be changed. I did notice last week when I was there was some dead limbs or a dead tree around the area. But other than that, no, there's no additional landscaping that needs to be installed, if that's what you're asking.
Thank you. Thank you. We need a caterer or a banquet hall in Matthews, so it sounds like a good use.
Yeah. So on this first sheet, if we can go to the table of permitted uses, this is what the applicant presented, and does not show what staff also recommended. So telephone exchange, down under offices and services, staff has suggested to cross that off. Okay, that is there. All right, it's just not highlighted in yellow. So I believe this is all current then, with what between staff and what the applicant has suggested be removed from the table of permitted uses under BH for that property. Are there any questions? And Mr. Danny Zizos is here. He is the caterer, and he is not the property owner, but he is the part applicant on this property.
Mary Jo, correct me if I'm wrong, funeral home is a permitted use?
That is still on there, yes.
I'll pull Paul Bailey here and ask that be stricken. I'm not sure a funeral home and a retail center would be an appropriate use.
Mr. Zizos, are you comfortable with removing that?
Sure. And also, Mr. Dave Taylor, the landlord, should be online as well. So I'm sure we won't be no problem.
If there's any other questions, please speak up, because at least in presentation mode, I'm not seeing everybody. So,
what's the difference in a brew pub and a microbrewery?
It's the size of the building and capacity that they can produce.
Okay, and then I think it struck off sales of alcohol, but then brew pub is allowed. So is there a conflict there, or?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is Dave Taylor. I represent the property owner, which is Christ Life Church. We still are holding meetings there in that facility. We would not be using it as a funeral home, but we would be conducting funeral or memorial services there on occasion. just for comment. It would not be a mortuary, in other words.
Right. I think that's Commissioner Urban's intent. I presume, is that correct, John?
That is correct.
So yeah, we would want a mortuary there, but be fine to have some sort of service or something.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Getting back to Ms. Garner, yes, there is a conflict there. So if you would like to possibly have the brew pub stricken because they both go under the prescribed conditions for the same 506.45 of our UDO.
I guess one question, if it's a caterer and then in the design there's a bar, if it's an alcohol bar, I understand that that would be the caterer's license.
Correct.
I don't want there to be a conflict between all three of those, I guess is what a...
Yes.
Would a caterer's license preclude the alcohol sales?
I cannot specifically answer that because that's under ABC regulations. And I'm not sure, Mr. Zizos, if you what your understanding is for a caterer, but a brew pub is specifically the making of the alcoholic beverage and sale on site.
Right, I understand, I guess that, and since there are restaurants close by, I don't see a reason to strike off brew pub from it. The idea of alcohol sales, though, I wanted to clarify that, because if it's, for a catering, and with wedding celebrations, there may be wine sales. I'm not sure, but I just wanted to clarify that before we do anything.
I want to comment on that. I'm only going to be doing what the ordinance allowed me to do. But as far as, having a bar and serving liquor before or after, that's not going to happen. This is just going to be a family banquet facility.
Ms. Gardner, we can clarify that for the planning board on the 28th, and also and have that also updated for you with the decision date.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions?
John, I have one.
Yes, Commissioner
Miller. He should be able to cater beer and wine with any meals, correct? I saw a bar diagram on the right side of the interior layout. Is there some type of an objection to that? Renee, you don't have an objection to that?
I don't have an objection to alcohol sales. I just thought it needed to be clarified before any movement further with the application.
Okay, all right, because it's common to have beer and wine with a catering event, and I want to be clear about that. So if that's fine and acceptable to everyone, then I'm good.
Also, Mr. Miller, it's in the ordinance and the definition of the banquet hall in there as well.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, we appreciate it, gentlemen, for being in attendance tonight. This will come before the planning board on July 28th, and we will come back to us on our next meeting on August 10th. At our next meeting, our first meeting in August.
Hey. Is the planning board in attendance tonight?
Yeah. Many of them.
Yes.
So then they would have an opportunity. This is a joint public hearing with the planning board. They would have an opportunity to answer questions or ask questions.
Okay. Are there any questions from the planning board?
This is Mike Foster. No questions here.
Thank you, Mike. And I see Natasha.
Yeah, this is Natasha. I do not have any at this time.
Okay.
It's
All right,
Tim Johnson. I don't.
Okay. So I guess we'll, this will come back before our board on August 10th. So we'll move on to.
Sorry, Mayor. We typically open up to the general public for comment. And Charlie, I believe there's a 24-hour period for comments after this hearing.
That's correct.
Okay.
Written comment may be received up 24 hours after tonight's meeting.
Okay. So if there's anybody from the public that would like to present a comment, you have up to 24 hours from now to present such a comment regarding the zoning application. All right. Let's move on to item 9C. Zoning application 2020-712, Family Investments LLC, to change the zoning from O office to RVS on that certain property located on North Fremont Street across from 313 and 317 North Fremont Street, and being designated as tax parcel 193-27121. This was also continued from June 8th. Mr. Will.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Yes, as you mentioned, this is application 2020-712. This is the pre-public hearing staff analysis. The location is on North Fremont Street. The property does not have an address, so we just refer to it as opposite 313 and 317 North Fremont. It's owned by Morris Family Investments, and they propose to change the zoning from of the property from office to RVS for the purpose of constructing 3 single-family homes. The next slide shows an aerial photograph. As you can see, the existing parcel is outlined in green, and it is currently vacant. The next slide shows that, again, the property is currently undeveloped. It's 0.343 acres in size. There are 2 large maturing trees on the site which will remain. Those are towards the rear of the site. In addition to being zoned O, it is also located within the downtown overlay district. This is just the site plan of the proposed subdividing and construction of 3 single-family homes. As you can also see, the sidewalk will be extended along North Fremont in front of the 3 future properties. The next slide is a summary of some proposed conditions. These are fairly standard. The regulations established under the ordinance of the RVS zoning shall govern the use and development of the site. It's only to be used for a residential community containing a maximum of 3 single-family detached dwelling units and any accessory uses. It shall comply with the dimensional standards of the RVS zoning district set out in the UDO and site data table on the rezoning plan. And the streetscape along the site's frontage extended along North Fremont Street shall meet the requirements of the ordinance. Maximum height of one of the single-family dwellings is 35 feet. And the next 2 conditions have to do with architectural elevations, which are on the next slide. Attached are these conceptual schematic images of the front elevations of the single-family detached dwellings to be constructed at the site. The applicant may subsequently propose additional conceptual schematic images of the front elevations of the dwelling units, and such additional conceptual images must be approved by the Matthews Board of Commissioners. The next slide shows that we have consistency with the land use plan. The town encourages a variety of alternative residential housing and mixed-use developments in the downtown area. Such uses support the economy of downtown and create demand for a wider array of land uses. And new construction that adds diversity of land uses is essential to the vitality of the downtown. The proposed change in zoning from O to RVS is consistent with these elements of the land use plan. And the final slide is staff comments and any outstanding issues. And as you can see, planning, police, fire, public works, Parks and Rec had no concerns about this proposed rezoning on North Fremont Street.
Okay, thank you, Rob. I have a couple questions. One of the residents that lives in across the street, essentially from this proposal, is concerned about water runoff, which is already a problem. Is that going to be addressed by the developer in some way? I understand there's a pretty sharp topo difference from where these lots will be and the lots across the street. There's already a considerable concern about runoff during heavy rain events.
Yes, and if I recall correctly, that was something that was brought up at their community meeting, and the developer has engaged a civil engineer to assist with the design of stormwater, and we will also be coordinating with the town engineer.
And the other concern brought up was some screening at the southern portion of the property with regards to the Lingle's office building. Not sure where that is on here.
Looks like towards the, okay. Yeah, since we'll be going from a residential or to a residential zoning district, I believe that screening will be required since the surrounding zoning districts, with the exception of the other RVS that's next to this, will require some screening if they have.
The resident's comment said the applicant's plans say that tree preservation may occur in areas generally depicted on the rezoning map, and that's some pretty weak wording. I'd like to see improved a little when this comes back to us. Do any of the other elected officials have any comments or questions?
I'll go ahead and speak up. It's just an FYI or a note of concern. It's not a note of concern for myself, but in light of the Main Street homes, these houses will be full-fledged 2-story, and as by the example elevations, they're going to look 3 stories in nature because of the roof line. So I just want to raise this up to everybody so they're not built and everybody goes, oh my God, they're too big, they're crowding, they're overscaled, blah, blah, blah. I would just ask the developer keep that in mind, unless petitioners don't have a problem with it. But these are 2 full stories with gable-end roofs. Everything across the street is 1.5 stories. So it's a difference in scale. My opinion, though, is because they are across the street, it is not as detrimental as they are when they're side by side. So I just want to lift that up so we don't have that aha moment 9 months from now.
We have any other questions or comments from the commissioners?
I have a question. It says, to the RVS expands the alternative style housing. How does this expand alternative style housing in the downtown area?
That's a good question. I believe that, let me check my notes.
I think the whole street is RVS due to the smaller lot sizes. It was an infill project a few years back, so they wanted to be consistent with the rest of the street. Most of it, I believe, is due to the smaller side lot lines.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, Rob, you tell me.
Yeah, no, I think that is what the diversity of residential uses, and it's also because it is a different land use than some of the other properties that are surrounding the area in the downtown.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? Comments? Okay, hearing none, does the planning board, anybody in the planning board have any questions or comments?
Not at this time.
This is Mike. Just a couple questions about size. What is the approximate square footage of those homes?
At this time, I do not know because those were just example elevations. So I think in the community meeting notes they are, well, no, I think they just gave a price point in those. So I don't know the square footage.
What's the distance to the lot lines?
Uh,
I'm sure it's been checked and meets the minimum, but that's a lot of house or houses on a very small piece of property.
It is. Yes, the side lot lines is 6 feet, which is the minimum. Well, the minimum for the RVS zoning district.
Okay. 6 feet on each side?
6 feet on each side.
So 33-foot wide lot, it leaves you 21 footprint for a house, 21 foot wide.
Okay.
Anyone else from the planning board have a question for Rob? I understand the applicants are here. Would the applicants like to say anything?
Dick, are you unmuted? Dick Morris? It's Paul Jameson here. Hey, guys. Dick, are you unmuted? You need to unmute yourself.
Okay. Am I unmuted now?
You are.
We can hear you.
Good.
You want to go ahead, Dick?
Yeah, we in order to make this work from the dollar standpoint, we needed to get 3 houses on this lot, which of course it does minimize the spacing at the sides and between the houses. And I think when we were meeting with the planning board, we were talking about 5-foot setbacks, and that's what we've got between the houses here. 5 foot with each house, so it's 10 feet between the houses.
And square footage was somewhere between 22 and 2,400, right?
Yes, 2,000 and 2,400 is my target.
2,000, 2,400. Do you have a copy of the project that we completed in Waxhaw to put up, Jay or Lori? I had submitted that with the application.
Yeah, I've got the images that Rob just shared. Let me see if I can find those. Give me just a moment.
Paul, while we're waiting on that, the price point was mentioned. What is the price point going to be on these homes?
425 to 450.
Okay.
It's a little hard with those pictures, John. I think to your point, to get a true proportion. I think they came out to be about 25 feet wide. Was that right, Dick? 24 to 26 feet, something like that?
I think so, yes. I think 2 of them are laid out of 26 and one of them is laid out of 28. We haven't really gotten into details on the floor plans or designs until we get by this zoning process, obviously.
Right. The pictures that you're going to see when they come up, the houses were approximately 24 feet wide, 1,839 square feet each, with that same 5-foot setback.
Paul, I do not have those on the website. Did you have a presentation you wanted to give? Because I apologize, I can't find those on the web.
I had submitted that all with you with those pictures, and I don't know at this point. I guess I can go back to an email and see if I can find it. Hang on.
For the rest of the board, we did build 6 houses in downtown Waxhaw, about 2 blocks off the main street. And as Paul said, they were a little over 1,800 square feet. The setbacks there were also 5 feet between the houses, and it turned out quite nice. I think everybody out there is happy with it.
Have any of the commissioners gone to see that project? I know that all the neighbors had gone to see it and were very pleased. Jeff, did you drive out, Jeff Miller?
No, I did not see the project in Waxhaw other than the photographs of the homes themselves, and they were nice. I do have one question while I'm on. I heard 6-foot side yards and I heard 5-foot setbacks. Which is it? If we're talking about the side in between houses, is it 5 and 5 or 6 and 6? I'd like a little clarification, please.
The way it's drawn, it's 5 and 5.
Thank
which
you.
is what we used in Waxhaw.
Okay.
Okay, Paul, I've got it. Just bear with me here. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a little squashed, obviously, stretched, but they're 25 feet wide, 1,839 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath.
And Paul, all of them have front porches.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are the 3 that you're going to build over there front porches as well?
Yeah, I would assume that there'll be some front porch. Of course, we've got a front entrance garage, which is going to take up some of the front of the house. But I'm assuming that we would have some at least partial front porch. Whether or not it'll go clear across the rest of the house, we just haven't gotten that far yet.
Yeah, Commissioner Whitley, the project in Waxhaw had a rear common drive. So
I got you.
Actually, in the rear, we felt it was beneficial for this to have a garage. And the best way to do that was to put a front load garage. I think that puts a real premium on and look wise keeps and minimizes the cars on the street.
Paul, are those
garage?
I'm sorry.
Is that a tandem garage, Paul?
It's single car.
No, single car, but is it tandem and you pull 2 cars in back to back?
No, single car. Yeah, one.
John,
car.
you asked my question.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's 1 car.
Yep.
Mayor, I have a question. Another question, please.
Sure. Commissioner Miller, go ahead.
Paul, I noticed that the footprint of the build of the house was towards the front of the lot line, and the back of the lot was substantially large. In other words, the backyard, which is to the bottom of 1, 2, and 3, I'm assuming, seems large. Couldn't number 1 and 2 be staggered back slightly if 3's got a tight corner and balance them out a little bit more and maybe offer up a front porch if that's a desire?
You know, one of the things we learned in Waxhaw was that is to build it to a certain specification before you sell it. Because once they start to make changes to it, pretty soon you're building a custom home and a non-custom home price point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the premiums that we've found as a result of not just the COVID, but of the market is 2 things. Number 1, every home needs some sort of space for an office. I think that's the future of the real estate market. I think you got to have a home office, I think, to exist going forward. The second is outdoor living space. And I think, Jeff, our thought process is that outdoor living space is now just as much of a premium as indoor living space. So the reason the yards, Dick and I felt we wanted to make sure that they were as generous as they could be was because I think people have a real desire to have some type of outdoor entertainment space that is somewhat private. If they want to put a privacy fence in between or any kind of screening in between, the front really doesn't offer that. And if you look at the neighborhood, no one's really hanging out on any kind of a front porch at all. All the other houses consistently don't have front type porches. They're small and more decorative. So we wanted to make sure there was benefit in the backyard. Does that make sense?
Sure. I mean, many people prefer a rear deck or a patio and some type of an enclosure. So I understand totally. Thank you.
Are there any other?
I'm assuming, Paul, that we're going to get a list of materials that you're going to be proposing for the exteriors.
Yes.
I have a question too. Recently, we looked at that College Street and talked about putting in if there needed to be curb and gutter added to it. Is that a requisite for this street as well, or was that something that, or stormwater drainage, or is that something that has already been decided isn't necessary for this property?
No, I think there will be curb and gutter. I think that's something that Jay indicated that either he would like or was necessary. So we're planning curb and gutter.
Yeah, I can add on to that, Dick. Commissioner Garner, I just wanted to reiterate in our staff report, there was an error in the staff report in that we did not reflect the comments from the town engineer. Susan does have concerns about stormwater runoff. We have relayed that to the applicant. Their site designer should be working on a solution at this time. So that does kind of echo the comments from Mr. Sumner across the street. So that's an item that definitely needs to be addressed before this project can come up for decision next month.
Daniel Esteban with Stantec is on. If you have any specific questions for him.
Thank you, Paul.
If you want to bring him in.
Was there a conversation about sidewalk as well?
There will be sidewalk.
Be sidewalk, yes.
All right. That's really important to me. Thank you.
It'll be 1 foot wide, John.
Sidewalk's a sidewalk. I can take anything I can get.
Our big decision is how to tie it in with the one to the north there, because it dead ends into a telephone pole.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Morris or Mr. Jameson from the board or the planning board?
Just one more question. It could be for Mr. Morris or Mr. Jameson. When you come to the planning board with this on the 28th, are we still going to be conceptual, or are we going to actually see pictures of the homes with more specifics about what you really want to do on those lots?
Well, Paul can react to that, but I think that we were not going to get into the specifics of what we were going to build beyond saying that there would be similar in appearance to the Waxhaw houses and the three that we presented with the application. We haven't gone further into more detail about what we're going to build until we got by the zoning process here.
All right. Any other comments?
I would say that Daniel Esteban is here from the engineering group, and they do have a proposed solution to the stormwater and the drainage problem, if you'd like to hear a little more detail on what he has in mind.
Sure. Mr. Esteban, would you like to tell us what you have in mind for drainage on the site?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So everyone's familiar with the site. So there's a ditch that runs on the southern side of Fremont right-of-way. What we're proposing to do is actually go a little bit further west or left of the plan sheet and regrade a portion of that ditch. There's a low spot in what's really causing some of that drainage here. Is there's a low spot right at the curb and gutter, and it doesn't at the end of the existing curb and gutter, so it doesn't allow that water to run down the curb and gutter and further down Fremont. There's two existing catch basins. So the proposal is to regrade that ditch and then put dual pipes in it. And since we don't have a lot of cover there and it's really flat, we're proposing to put two 8-inch pipes underneath the sidewalk and the driveways, and capture the runoff that comes from the driveways into that piping in the ditch system. So the intent is to not let that water sheet across the Fremont Road and onto the adjacent properties there to the north. There's also there was some mention and discussion about, the larger areas in the back great outdoor living space. It's also an area too that we can do some water quality and some infiltration. So hopefully we'll be reducing some of that water that's rushing off and over the streets so we can contain that on the southern side of the homes.
And Mr. Esteban, these plans will be included in your application?
They will, yes, sir.
And Mayor, just to clarify, earlier it was brought up by one of the neighbors, and we met with all the neighbors and they asked about the tree that lined the commercial building. On the one side, there's a line of trees. If you note at the note from our site plan, those trees will be taken down. The two large trees will remain. It is very unattractive, and really, I don't know that they're really called trees. I think they're just overgrown somethings. But those will be coming down, and whatever required zoning or whatever required screening will be there, will be put there in its place.
All right. Do we have any other questions or comments for Mr. Jameson, Mr. Esteban, or Mr. Morris, or Rob or Jay? All right. Hearing none, this will go back to the planning board on the 28th, then back to us on August 10th. And again, I'll remind the public that they have 24 hours also to make comments on this application. Let's move on to item 9D. Zoning application 2020-713 Home Depot to change the conditions in that certain B1 SCD shopping center district, commonly known as the Home Depot, and located at 1827 Matthews Township Parkway, and further designated as tax parcel 193-23133. This was also continued from June 8th. Ms. Collins.
Thank you again, Mayor. Yes, at this time, Home Depot has request for continuance again to August. The applicant has, since the June 8th meeting, has engaged an attorney, and the attorney's office would like to get up to speed and be better prepared for the public hearing at the August 10th meeting, if that is fine with the board.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion if it's your desire to continue this another month.
Mr. Mayor, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we extend the 2020-713 Home Depot hearing until August 10th, 2020.
Okay, we have a motion for Commissioner Urban. Do we have a second?
Second.
Charlie's trying to say something, but he's on mute.
Charlie, you're on mute, sir.
Technically, it's continue it until that date.
Continue the public hearing.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion to continue the public hearing until August 10th. Second by Commissioner Miller. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
And Commissioner Whitley, where did you go?
Yes.
There you are. These Zoom calls of participants keep moving around. I think that's everyone. I will vote in the affirmative as well. So that's application 2020-713 Home Depot will be continued until our August 10th meeting. Let's move on to item 9E, zoning application 2020-714 Elizabeth Lane Elementary to change the conditions to that existing RICD district on that certain property commonly known as Elizabeth Lane Elementary School to extend the sunset provision from August 1st, 2020 to August 1st, 2022 for 9 mobile units to remain on the campus. Darren Holman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to reiterate, this is application 2020-714 for Elizabeth Lane Elementary. Jay, if you go to the next slide. The current zoning is RI conditional district. And I believe they're requesting for 8 mobile classrooms to remain located on site from a district or expansion of a district or area of the site plan that was created in 1995. Jay, next slide. Okay. So this zoning district was originally created in 1995. At that time, there was an area set aside for mobile classroom units. In 2001, CMS requested that area be expanded to allow for additional units. At that time, the Board of Commissioners also included a sunset provision of 1 year, stating that it would revert back to the original 1995 line. And then in 2016, CMS requested that sunset provision be extended, and then that was extended, or that provision was extended in 2016, 2017, 18, and 19. In 2018, CMS did complete a queuing study as well at that property. Jay, next slide. So this is a zoomed in area of the mobile units. The highlighted area is the original 1995 boundary. As you can see, there are classrooms currently outside of that, and I believe there's a mobile restroom that's kind of teetering on the edge of that line as well. This would allow that outside boundary to be extended until 2022. Next slide. And then this is just a zoomed out of that property. Next slide. Also have an aerial of the property. This would mainly affect the mobile classrooms on the back side. Next slide. So this would continue some conditions that were already established for the property, like a 100-foot undisturbed buffer area. And then they are requesting a 2-year extension this year until the end, or August 1st, 2020. We did receive a comment for Public Works about this property. There was Public Works that would like to see a commitment that the queuing or see that the lane stacking that was implementing last year be continued for student pickup. CMS is requesting a 2-year extension on this request because they're currently undergoing redistricting countywide, and so requesting the 2-year would help it line up to see what the need or what student enrollment might be in the next few years. Are there any questions? And then I believe the applicants are here as well.
I have a question. I noticed you said 8 talking, but it actually showed 9 mobile homes. Is it 9 mobile homes?
Jay, can you pull the site plan back up real quick? Yeah, I noticed that at the end. So
go at the last, near the last one is where it showed 9 in your conditions.
Right. So I'm only seeing 8 outside. Go
to the next slide down near the end. That's where it was.
Right under the. It was the very last slide. It was that top condition. It said 9.
Right there. Yeah.
I only counted 8 currently outside of the boundary. I may have been counting that mobile restroom as well too.
Okay, thank you.
Would the representatives from CMS like to say anything?
Hello, this is Bob Sorrell. I'm the real estate specialist with CMS. I'm relatively new to CMS, but it's my understanding that this essential problem will be relieved with the construction of the Lansdowne reconstruction of Lansdowne Elementary School to relieve the pressure on 3 other schools, including this one. And that construction was delayed by a year because of some topography issues. So it should open approximately at the time when this sunset would expire, and then we wouldn't have nearly the need for mobile classrooms.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sorrell. I would just like to say that I discussed this at length with CMS Chairperson Elise Dashew, and she has assured me that within 2 years, just as Mr. Sorrell said, we expect that Lansdowne will be completed and we'll be able to, relieve some of the pressure at Elizabeth Lane. This has been an ongoing struggle, especially for those of us that have been in elected office for a while. We've been wanting these trailers number diminished or have them removed altogether for many years. But I do support this request in that I believe we are going to see some relief within 2 years, and it's reasonable because of the delay to allow the 2 years. Just remind the board that if we draw a line in the sand, it's likely that children that live in Matthews that attend Elizabeth Lane may be assigned to another school. So it's, not a really good choice either way, but in my mind, the trailers are better than that option. Commissioner Urban.
I can support this under a caveat. One is the lane stacking continues,
sure.
But I'd also like 2 people to look at this. One is I want to make sure that Chief Pennington is still reviewing or still looking at the property in terms of safety issues for the children. And 2, we did this several years ago. I think it was at the bequest of Commissioner Query, that the handrails, the walkways, the general condition of the buildings and all are inspected and checked. Because if I'm not mistaken, after that inspection, CMS plowed in, actually I thought it was several $100,000 to make repairs in order to improve safety and mobility and access to these trailers as well. So I don't want to go 2 years and find out things have been in terrible disarray, children are getting injured or something's in decay. I'd like to have that sort of checked out before we make the final vote.
Those are excellent points, Commissioner Urban. Are there any other comments or questions for either Darren or Mr. Sorrell from the town board? Commissioner Bland.
Maybe, like I said, I wasn't on the board back when this was discussed before about this particular school, but has there been any talk about enlarging this school? It looks like there's a lot of vacant land around this piece of property. Why can't we just enlarge the school as opposed to, has there been any discussion of that?
Yeah,
I think money comes up.
No money, yeah. Funding has been an issue.
And one of Commissioner Bland, one of their comments was also, we talked about how it's sort of a fingered type school. Commissioner Urban suggested walling it in, and they said that it would overwhelm their cafeteria and auditorium capacity, and we couldn't quite understand that if the people in the trailers or learning cottages, as they're referred to, are already eating there. But there's a technicality in the legal system and or policy on how they handle that.
I was just curious. It seems like that's been a problem for a long time, and it seems to me that there's an obvious solution. But maybe they're wanting to build back in closer to to the Charlotte side, but they're going to make a huge, maybe build a school down there, down the road, or, maybe this is something, you guys talk about, we want to have a good relationship with them, but maybe we need to talk to them and see if that might not be a better solution that can be fixed a lot quicker than what they're trying to do at Lansdowne.
I think it's going to take a multi-pronged attack, and we really need to be lobbying the county commissioners who hold the checkbook. CMS really doesn't have the money, the county does, so got to get them to release the funds. But I share my distaste for trailers as much as anyone. I went to South Mac High School and took classes in trailers, and I've seen trailers become a legacy that have lasted 40 and 50 years. So we do want to see them eliminated at some point. But I think the other point is it's not only Matthews that has trailers. Almost every school in the county has trailers. There's very few that don't. But it's certainly our wish to ultimately get rid of them and build brick and mortar classrooms like we're used to, and not have kids in learning cottages, which is a kind of a funny euphemism for that. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yes. I'm a little late joining you all. I am so sorry. I'm Tricia Stewart. I'm the assistant principal at Elizabeth Lane. And my daughter had a baby 3 weeks early a little bit ago, so I was scrambling to get here. But I just wanted to take a minute and address any questions you have about Elizabeth Lane. I think I might have come in on that conversation.
Well, I know that Commissioner Urban mentioned a commitment that you would have to do the double stacking that was started to alleviate some of the traffic over there. We hope that you continue to do that. And,
yes.
I don't want to put words in Commissioner Urban's mouth. You want to talk about the safety issues, John?
Well, I mean, it was two-pronged. I mean, I know Chief Pennington was out there and looked at the situation. There were some, we had said we would provide the cameras and pay for it, and that kind of went by the wayside, and CMS said we'd do something else. And we know how the security camera issue went with CMS in that scenario. So I want to make sure that our chief of police feels that our children are being well secured and protected at that campus. In the same light as we did several years ago, I want to make sure that the walkways and the handrails and all the structures out there are in sound condition and are not in any decay or deterioration. Like I said several years ago, we brought that to the attention of CMS. They found some funding to go ahead and make those repairs, because I don't want to see any injuries out there because of split rails or someone falling off of something, or decks in disrepair.
Yep, I can speak to both of those things. So each learning cottage now has the wide peephole, if you will, on the door, so that when the teacher looks out, you have a wider swath of what you can see. The cameras are in place for out there. They are working well. We can monitor those from inside the building. We are committing to, let me back up. CMS came in last summer and they updated all of the wood that was in disrepair. They put down rocks where the gravel had kind of washed away from the rain. So that's all been repaired. They added an additional exit from the learning cottages onto the track and playground area to alleviate the funnel effect during the event of a fire or a fire drill, which makes exiting the learning cottages much quicker than before. And additionally, we had some of our learning cottages enter the building through a different door at the end of the 5th grade hallway, which also made the flow of children much more efficient and conducive to moving quickly. From a traffic standpoint, we don't plan on changing anything with traffic this year. Once we got into the routine last year with the double stacking, we found that it worked great. We got a lot of consistent compliments from people in the neighborhood about how much better it was for traffic out on Elizabeth Lane and 51. So we want to make sure we're keeping our neighbors happy, and the bus drivers were able to work with it, and we just flipped the way the buses pull into the slots, and that allowed them room to swing when they came in, and there were really no issues after that. I will share with you that I'm not sure what the council's plan is for providing extra duty for officers to come and sign up to help with morning and evening traffic. That was really instrumental in helping everything work well. But I can tell you that under the proposed Plan B of returning to school, it is going to take every person we have to do temperature screenings and keep kids 6 feet apart, and all of the other requirements we're going to have to follow. So this year more than ever, I would think that it would be crucial that we have some officer assistance out there to help direct the traffic.
I want to allow Chief Pennington to address that, but I also want to acknowledge him for being very active in providing a solution for helping with the double stacking and making that a much safer experience. He did a did a great job, him and his staff. But Chief, would you like to address the extra help?
Well, the only thing I will address in that is that we're going to need the commitment from the school board and CMS. That is funded through CMS. So that is not something that we can commit to in our current budget status to say we are going to commit the extra money if CMS is not in this as a partner. So I hear you. We're in it. We will provide that as we can with that off-duty or that extra money that CMS pays us. That's how we fund it. So as long as CMS commits to the same partnership we'll commit to, we're in it.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a question for either Chief or Ms. Stewart. Could some of those roles be handled by volunteers? Is that allowed is that legal?
So there is a state law that allows us to, if you will, commission a civilian traffic control officer, a TCO, and that's under the code. So we can do that. The issue with it is we have to provide a certain level of training. We've got to provide safety equipment. We've got to provide, pay, if you will, because it is a traffic control officer that falls under the auspice of the police department. So there are some insurance issues there. Now, I will admit some of my shortcomings in this last year. Hazen has been really pushing me to kind of come up with a process under this TCO concept. We just have not been able to settle on where it ends. But again, the way that it's currently operating is under money from CMS, and that's how we're paying those off-duty officers out there to direct traffic. And I would agree with Ms. Stewart. It's a huge help to not only the children and the parents, but to the residents out there. It's not a perfect solution the way we've got this thing double stacked, but it's really based on the situation, the best we can come up with right now.
And beyond traffic control, I was thinking of things like temperature checks. Could a stay-at-home parent that has a few hours, could they volunteer to do that?
You mean as far as screening the teachers and students?
Sure.
From what I understand, volunteers on campus are going to be pretty limited this year. It'll be staff who are trained and familiar with the protocols.
It's catch-22, however you look at it. So.
Besides that, I was told I can't direct traffic anyhow. Is that true, Chief?
That is true. No, without a certain level of training, I think it's 3 hours a year we would have to provide safety training equipment. And there is a liability insurance concern that we'd have to work through.
Mayor, I want to add to this real quickly too. School resource officers, very important to us in our community. They play a great role with the DARE program. They are warmly received in our schools. We do want to make sure that funding continues because that is a big benefit and can supplement some of the things we're talking about here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Any other comments or questions for anyone on this topic? And again, the public will have 24 hours also to submit comments. I'm sorry, does somebody have a question or comment? Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. That will come back. That'll go to the planning board July 28th and back to us on the 10th. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to reconvene our regular meeting.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Miller, second by Commissioner McCool. Roll call vote. Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So we now are back in our regular meeting and we'll undertake agenda item number 11, planning and development business. Jay, do you want to introduce the planning board that are in attendance?
Sure, I'd be happy to. We have our recently anointed chair, Mike Foster. So welcome, Mike. Well, he's not new to the board, but now the chair. Jonathan Clayton, Tom Dorsey, Natasha Edwards, Jim Johnson, and Carrie Lamson. If anyone else is in attendance and I missed you, speak up. Thank you.
Let me just say we appreciate all the work the planning board does. It's probably it requires the most work of any of our advisory boards, and we really appreciate it. Let's move on to 11A, receive a report from the planning board from planning board chair Mike Foster. Mike?
Mute button, Mike. Mute button.
Someday I'll learn. Apparently not tonight. Okay. I have the report from the planning board meeting of June 23rd, 2020. Two items were reviewed and have been forwarded to the town board for action. First item is zoning motion 2020-1, United Development Ordinance text amendment for outdoor illumination. Planning board members voted unanimously to recommend approval for the text amendment for outdoor illumination as it was presented at the public hearing, with 1-foot candle at the property line of non-residential developments. The text was to be found consistent with the Matthews land use plan because it updated text language to match current technology requirements, and it provides additional definitions in order to assist developers in understanding the regulations. The text amendment was found to be reasonable because it promoted public safety through best practice standards. Second item was an administrative amendment for Creek Bend monument sign. The administrative amendment for the monument sign at the Creek Bend subdivision was unanimously recommended by the town planning board. The request was found to be consistent with the Matthews land use plan and the town's long range plan, as there was no significant impact to neighboring properties, allowed for subdivision signage, and has a positive impact to the adjoining properties. As a side comment, the planning board, I believe, unanimously also agreed that the knee wall with the new sign was a much better option for the entrance to the neighborhood than the two pergolas that had been originally presented and approved. And as Jay mentioned, our new members were in place, and that's the last meeting, and we had our elections with new officers. And that's all I have. Are there any questions from the board?
Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. We'll move on to planning and zoning related actions. B1, motion 2020-1, text to change the text to revise the standards for outdoor illumination that Mike just spoke of. Mary Jo.
Yes, as Mr. Foster said, the planning board recommended unanimously to keep the original text that was presented at the public hearing. And it says section 155-609.7.a, all new lighting installations and renovations to existing lighting fixtures adjacent to a commercial property shall show the intent to limit foot candle levels at property lines to 1 foot candle initial illumination. So they reviewed the 2-foot candles as requested during the public hearing by a commissioner, and they felt that the staff proposed changes should be left as is. So it's up to the board whether they want to go with the recommendation by the planning board or go to the 2-foot candles, back up to 2 foot.
Okay, thank you, Mary Jo. Questions, comments, or motions?
I have one question, Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner Miller.
Commentary. Called me old fashioned, but you know, when I was a kid, lighting used to be easy. You had a 25, a 40, a 75, and a 100-watt bulb. You decide how many watts to put in a fixture, and that was an incandescent bulb. Then you have a CFL, and supposedly they're also measured by wattage. And then when you go to outdoor lighting, you have commercial lighting, and it needs to be dark sky compliant. It can't light up vertically or that you can't see the stars. And then recently they go to LEDs, and LEDs are being measured by lumens. What's up with the foot candles? How many languages do we need to speak? Mary Jo, do you have a comment?
All I can say is that that's how you measure the light is during foot candles and the lumens. That's, you know, we've went to the technology expert, our engineer, and this is what has been suggested. And our old ordinance measured it as foot candles also. And we updated it to have lumens be with the current technology.
Jeff, the wattage is the amount of power required to run the light and not really directly related to how much light or brightness that actually comes off of it. But yeah, it does get very confusing. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Have any questions, comments, or motions?
Well, if everybody's slow on the draw, Mr. Mayor, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve 2020-1, that the requested zoning action as most currently amended is approved and has been found to be consistent. It allows for the incorporation of text language to match current technology requirements. Additionally, it provides specific language for staff to enforce the ordinance and assist developers in understanding the regulations. And the text amendment is reasonable because it promotes public safety through best practice standards.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban, for that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Urban, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Garner. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Sure.
Commissioner McCool.
Yes.
And Commissioner Whitley, who, if you haven't heard me say how sharp you look tonight, let me say it again in that uniform. How do you vote?
Thanks, sir. Yes, I do vote.
I vote yes as well, so that passes unanimously. Thank you, guys. We'll go to the next one. Planning and Development Business 11B2, Administrative Amendment for Creek Bend Subdivision. Mary Jo.
Thank you again, and this is the last time you will hear from me this evening, Mayor. The Land Investment Resources LLC was the original applicant for Creek Bend subdivision out on Idlewild Road. In 2014, they approved the town board. August 14, 2017, the town board approved the rezoning for the subdivision. One of the notes, conditional notes, discussed the entrance monuments and proposed gazebo type entrance monuments on either side along Idlewild Road. The developer is now requesting replacing the gazebo with a 2-foot knee wall on both sides and one single shingle type monument sign on one side of the entrance. They have Land Investment Resources, the original home builder has now gone away, and new home builders have decided they do not want the gazebo style entrance monuments. And you have recently, within the last year, approved new elevations also for this subdivision. So thank you, Jay. Keep scrolling down to the pictures, please. So here's the entrance, and that shows the approximate area of the 2-foot knee walls.
Sorry for the technical difficulties.
That's okay. There we go. And the sign on one side. Next slide, please. Again, this is the monument that they're looking at, type signage that they would like to install. Next slide, please. And a view of the monument again. This shows what the original rezoning of 2017 showed that they were proposing to put at the front entrance, one of these type gazebo seating areas. The subdivision is only 28, 29 homes. Can't remember exactly at this time. And out on Idlewild Road, which will be widened eventually, the new home builder felt that this is not a best use for finances to put this type of structure out there. Plus, they don't feel that this would be well used. Next slide. Again, here's a photo of what proposed would look like for the monument and signage. Next slide. And this is just the overall development. And there will be required landscaping along the road, sidewalks that have already been installed along Idlewild Road. I believe I can't see all the participants, but I do believe that Mr. Hayes, the original applicant, is on the meeting tonight. If there's any other questions, again, it is the request to remove the gazebo style entrances to go with the knee wall and the monument signs.
Okay, can we go off the presentation view? Thank you. Are there any questions? Commissioner McCool.
Is there any way we can know what the color of the lettering on the sign will be, or what the sign would be? I just want to be sure it's not going to be like lime green or something, something outlandish.
No, and we can't determine color when we approve a sign, and that has to be approved. Signage all has to go through staff to be approved.
Okay.
Okay. I seriously doubt they're not going to do lime green.
Mary Jo, you said the applicant is here?
Yes, Mr. Hayes is on. I see he is on the call.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Phil Hayes. Sir, can you hear me?
Mr. Hayes, can you turn your speaker or your mic on?
Got it.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening. I tend to agree that gazebos along Idlewild Road would probably not get a lot of use, but have you considered moving at least one of such structures into the neighborhood as an amenity for those that live there?
Sure, I'd like to address that. I want to thank you for letting me come back before you, and I'm sorry that this has to be a loose end that we have to clean up. We have a considerable amount of open space within this subdivision. Unfortunately, most of it is all within the floodplain. We looked at options for trying to move the gazebo or that similar type of structure within the open space areas, but it's not structurally permitted. We will have a large number of walking paths in the back of the lots in the open space, but that one particular item just doesn't have a place where it can reside. What we will have with our community mailbox is a covering over that community mailbox where people can stop, pick up their mail, not get covered or not be exposed to the rain while they're doing that. So that will be a structure that will be placed into an easement area. One of the issues in not having any common open space where we could provide a structure was that it would end up being in somebody's backyard, and we just didn't feel like that was a conducive situation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hayes. Are there any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Hayes, there's a note, maybe Mary Jo can answer this. There's a note on the drawing that's highlighted. It says frontage column and fence typical. Yet I'm not seeing how that plays into this signage. Is it something that dies into the signage? Is it being deleted? Or, I mean, what's the relationship between the signage and this fence that calls out?
I'm sorry, I'm not. Where is that note?
Go to it's the very bottom. Right below the berm planting, it says frontage column and fence typical. And the same note is on the north side of the page as well.
So Mary Jo, you want to address that?
I sure will, Mr. Hayes. So the original landscape plan that was approved showed fencing within the landscaping. It is my understanding that now the developer is removing the fencing, and so they will have to come back to staff for approval for a new landscaping plan, which I believe they are in the process of doing. Is that correct, Mr. Hayes?
Yes, as the language in the note to recite it basically says the fence was an optional addition to the landscaping plan. Which
on the rezoning.
Yes, which we are now going to reconfigure the landscaping, hopefully make it much more creative now that we have a berm out front as opposed to the conditions that we originally thought would be there. So the fence does not seem to be something that makes sense with that new landscaping plan.
Yeah, let me clarify, Mr. Urban. So the original rezoning, besides the gazebos, it also had a note that said it was up to the developer whether he put a fence in there in front along this Idlewild Road. So they have chosen not to. However, when the civil plans were approved, it showed the fence in the civil plans. So now they have to come back to staff to get it reapproved without the fence, to make sure they meet the landscaping requirements according to our ordinance.
So are we going to have our arborist vet this and look for an enhanced landscape buffer or an enhanced landscaping?
It's in our ordinance, yes. It'll be different than what was originally approved. So the schematic and the rezoning was just pictures. It was just for, for drawing's sake. It did not specifically meet our ordinance requirements. But when the civil plans came through, we did make sure it met our ordinance requirements based on the fence being in there. Once the fence is removed, then there's additional requirements that have to be met. So they have to bring that back to staff.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because it seems like we were doing deducts and not getting anything for our deduct, including the pavilion, because a pergola or pavilion or whatever is definitely a more expensive element than this particular sign, which I'm fine with. I like the pavilion for the fact is that someday there'll be a sidewalk around Idlewild and people want to go to the park and they're strolling along and they want to take a rest. They could take a rest there. But being that all as it may, I will look to Mary Jo and staff to keep the iron hot with the landscaping. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think I detected a little bit of frustration in Commissioner Urban's voice and mine as well, because this is the second time these plans have changed on something that we voted on initially. So while I agree, I can go along with it. I'm a little bit frustrated that the plans keep changing on what we initially approved.
Correct.
That being said, would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the Creek Bend subdivision administrative amendment request for a change of entrance monuments to a knee wall and monument sign, and that it's consistent as it supports the economic viability of the Creek Bend subdivision, and it's reasonable because there is no significant impact to neighboring properties and allows for similar signage showed in subdivisions throughout Matthews.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion to accept this administrative amendment by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner McCool. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
No.
Thank you. Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Commissioner McCool.
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. So that passes 6-1 with all in favor except for Mayor Pro Tem Garner, who voted no. Thank you.
Thank you,
Let's
Board.
move on to the next item. Discuss code enforcement plan for Eastwood Forest subdivision. Mr. Carlo McCoy.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Carlo.
Good evening.
Hi, this is my first time being before the board, and I'm bringing forward to you. You heard earlier some additional comments coming from Mrs. Owens and Mr. Withrow. And I've come here to sort of bring you guys up to date as what we have done in Eastwood Forest in the past, talk about what we're doing now, and talk about some things that we want to do, in the future on that, or that we would like to do. Eastwood Forest, if everybody probably knows that, it's probably one of the most affordable neighborhoods that we have in Matthews. And with that, there's a fair amount of issues that we have to deal with. But when you look at what our town code and zoning has to do, it's pretty much take care of the character of the neighborhood, make sure that we maintain that type of stuff. And when I go out there as a code enforcement officer, I endeavor to do that, but I end up working with all the residents to ensure that all those standards, zoning, town code, et cetera, kept up in Eastwood Forest. If you look at what I've done in there, we've done extensive enforcement in that neighborhood. We're looking at tall grass, trash and debris, junk vehicles, and zoning. And most of the enforcement is, I would say it's mostly driven by complaints, but mostly what I can see visibly from the street. So what we have done, we've used a significant amount of resources there. The police have been out there every time a lot of times when I have to go out there, I have to utilize them. What you will recall as Mrs. Owens and Mr. Withrow said, Mr. Withrow made a comment on the June the 9th. He came back again tonight. And he and I met out there, and he's correct. We found a lot of things wrong out there. Trash and debris at the properties, which is a violation of Section 9401. Junk vehicles in the front and rear of the vehicle. A lot of that stuff was behind the fence. Let me tell you about Mr. Withrow, though. I appreciate him allowing me, because what he allowed us to do is go look on his property. Before, most of the things I see was what I could see from the front door. He allowed us to go look at the rear of some property. So we saw some really interesting things when we went back there. A lot of trash and other types of things. Zoning violations that were back there, like sheds there were. Some were over the property line, some that were pretty close to the property line. Junk vehicles, there were some of them in the back. And even in the front of the yard, sometimes the fence hid what we could see. What we are looking at, what I decided to do, I didn't just stop at the properties that he brought out to. I went throughout the entire Eastwood Forest, documented it. We got photos and other types of stuff. And we're going to be working with the property owners. That's what we need to do. We're going to be working with the property owners to bring them into compliance. And if there are violations, if they're not fixed or anything like that, we plan to, for instance, that civil penalties can be issued for any type of zoning violations. We're going to always seek some type of alternative if we can. I don't think this is going to be something we're going to be able to do in 30 days. It's a 60, 90, maybe even longer time frame to be able to do this. Some of them got junk vehicles that's been there for a while. We're going to look at removing those and coming up with orders. The trash is going to be one of the big problems there, because there's trash on a lot of properties in there. So we're going to have to go ahead and do something with that. My solution with the trash is do something like we did in Crestdale. We had like a cleanup day or something. And we've actually had one. I wasn't there about 10 years ago, cleanup day in Eastwood Forest. Have something like that. We provide the dumpsters. If we're going to help them, because again, it's our most affordable neighborhood. We need to, if we can, maybe look at having reduced landfill fees in case they do something that that will help them out. We are not going to be doing anything if the property owners all do what they're supposed to do. If they clean up, we don't have to go in and do anything. But I would think, based on what I've done in the past, we're probably going to have to do some things. And if they don't clean up, we'll come in there with whatever type of equipment and, that we need to do that with. Okay. One thing I've done, though, that I started this process off by talking to all the landlords. There are about 4 of them that owns about 40% of the property. So I've sort of got their buy-in already, including the speaker that you heard earlier today. So I've gotten his buy-in to do that. And so we're going to go ahead, start cleaning up. We're going to have all the junk vehicles. We're going to have them move. Zoning violations were something now. When I sent my notice of violation out to the property owners, I say, contact me. They started off, and they did. I've had about three calls already saying, hey, what do I need to do? So I'm already start working with, and that is the key, be able to communicate with them. So I'm going to continue to communicate with them. And we have some, what I call zoning issues, like sheds that are too close to the property line. Those we're going to have to work with them to bring those into compliance, probably a variance or something. I talked to one lady that was 74 years old. She said her husband built it 50 years ago. We're going to try to work with her to bring that into compliance by seeking a zoning variance. Now, if they don't clean up, I anticipate there's a potential that the town's going to, and I really, just like Mr. Withrow says, we need to have the board, they need to understand what we can do, need to have their backing, because if they don't clean up, we're going to need to go in there and clean up. And typically when we do the nuisance cleanup, liens are sort of placed against the property if they don't pay. I mean, we would do it at our, but it'd be at their expense, and we'll put a lien against their property. So we don't, not necessarily asking anything right now, but this is for discussion purposes only. And can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this is for discussion purposes only. Are there any questions?
Carl, let me just let me start by saying that you've got one of the toughest jobs in the town, and we really appreciate all your efforts here. Speaking only for myself, I would say that I really appreciate the very measured approach you're taking. You don't just go slam the hammer down and say you have 30 days to clean this stuff up, because that's not reasonable. It didn't take 30 days to get there. It's going to take longer to clean it up. That being said, we do need to take some action there. It looks like some cleanup has already been undertaken on some of those homes that I drive by on a regular basis, but I understand more is needed. Commissioner Miller, do you have a comment, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Carlo, are you suggesting then that the town or the taxpayers pay for the dumpster fees? As an example, I just paid $675 for a 30-yard rollout. It almost seems like it'd be more than one per property on Morningwood. Is this something the town would pay for then?
Commissioner Miller, what we're really looking for when we talk about a dumpster, we want to put 1 or 2 dumpsters on a cleanup day. We really do want the property owners to clean up themselves, so we won't have to do it. And if we have to go in, we probably won't be doing the dumpster. We'll probably do more of a heavy type of equipment. So you're talking about, let's say if we had to clean everything up, you're probably talking about 25 dump truck loads of stuff. That's the stuff that I saw, and probably a similar amount of hours there. So that it's going to be a little bit different if we have to do it.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, Carlo come up with a very good plan, in my opinion, and he showed me some pictures, and it does kind of blow you away with the amount of junk. I don't know how else to say it. And I think, and Carlo has a very good reputation of working very well with people, being a very good communicator. But I do think if push comes to shove, in order to really get this cleaned up, we may need to expend some town funds. And then what we'll do is we'll put a lien on the property, and we have precedent with this. We've done this on property on Honeysuckle Ridge, and we've gotten the money back too, thanks to Charlie Buckley. But so I think it's time for action. I think Carlo and Jay have come up with a great plan, and we just wanted to give you guys a heads up to say, okay, it may cost some money to, as a last resort, to kind of push this across the finish line.
Very good.
Yeah, I'd like to see it cleaned up, but I do want to give those that live there an opportunity to clean it up themselves. And then if they don't, then Carlo, lay the hammer down. But we'll be somewhat reasonable to give them some time to clean it up. Any other comments or questions for Mr. McCoy?
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.
Great job. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 12, the consent agenda. I'd
like to make a motion that we approve consent agenda A through E5.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the consent agenda items 12A through E5 from Mr. Whitley, a second from Commissioner Miller. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Commissioner McCool.
Yes.
I vote yes as well. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Move on to unfinished business. Receive an update from NCDOT regarding South Trade Street culvert. I believe we have Mr. Littlefield, PE from NCDOT here with us.
Yes, and Brian Davis should be on. He's a resident engineer for U5804B, and he'll be providing the update.
Okay.
Hey, how are y'all doing?
Good.
We're wanting that bridge done.
Yeah. I'm AJ.
As do I. So I appreciate y'all. Excuse me. I appreciate y'all having me on. I appreciate Hayes in inviting Jeff and myself on to tell you a little bit about what's going on at Trade Street and how we move forward. This slide here shows a shot of Trade Street as soon as we turned it into the current pattern that we have now. To your right is Brenham Lane, and you're looking back towards downtown. Next slide, please. The project overview. This project was to provide, just to bring everybody, all the board members up to speed. We were to do improvements from just north of Chapin Lane all the way down to just south of Marquee Place. We will widen Trade Street from 2 to 4 lanes from Chapin to Weddington, and then extending the 4 Mile Creek box culvert to both the east and west sides, and we were also building head walls for the future pedestrian culvert and a future pedestrian path. And we're also adding bike lanes and sidewalks to complement the bike lanes that we already have. Next slide, please. Project delays. Yeah, I'm sure everybody wants to know, what in the world's taking so long. Towards the beginning of the project, we did have a phase change in which the contractor did not have enough room, or he felt like when he bid on the job that he had enough room to provide the shoring necessary to hold up the roadbed while they excavated around the culvert. They tried for several months to make that work, and in the end, they could not make that work. So they had to flip to the and start from the other side, from the northbound side. However, they got over to the northbound side and figured out fairly quickly that they would have to shore that area as well, and the type of shoring needed was quite labor intensive and took a while. Wet weather has also kind of plagued the job. If you recall that the project started in late 2017, and most of the work was to be done in 2018. However, 2018 was very wet, and even after 2018, anytime that we get, say, a half an inch of rain or so, that area doesn't flood, but it gets up onto the floodplain, onto the bench, fairly easily for the amount of rain that's produced. And once that happens, it makes it difficult to work on the culvert, which was the controlling operation for most of the project. And then the last thing there is utility location and relocation. Some utility owners did have trouble locating their facilities in order for us to do our work and work around them. That is no longer a problem right now. And so before I continue, does anybody have any questions about the delays? Okay. Next slide, please. This is a shot of the culvert construction, I believe, on the west side or on the southbound side of Church Street. As you can see, we extended it pretty far. I believe about 30 feet in both directions. Next slide. Where do we go from here? As Mayor Higdon mentioned, we want this thing done, and I think the quickest path to do that, the quickest way to get traffic, because I know a lot of I know that is a bottleneck during AM and PM rush hour, is to put Trade Street into its final pattern. And these are the items, the major items of work that we need to get done in order for that to happen. We need to complete the 24-inch water line that is going down the southbound side, the southbound widening. We need to complete the storm drain on the southbound side as well as the curb and gutter. And we need to finish asphalt paving. This not only includes the widening, but there is some wedging that needs to be done in between the culvert and Weddington Road. And we also need to put in the sidewalk, handrail going across the culvert, and guardrail. And these items will take approximately 2 to 2.5 months. So we're from now. So we're probably looking at the somewhere between Labor Day and the middle of September to put traffic in its final pattern. Next slide, please. Work to be done after shifting to the final pattern. We have a 16-inch sewer line that is probably the controlling operation of the project, or be the longest item. We have had some delays with this sewer line. It is, as we found out, in quite a bit of rock. The contractor tried to tunnel this sewer line about 6 months ago, or I'm sorry, a little longer than that, probably more like 9 months ago. They began tunneling, and this is they could not drill, and they found out that they were in a lot of rock, and so therefore they had to physically put a man inside the encasement pipe and have him chip with a jackhammer the area around the encasement until they got to the other side. He was able to chip out about 1 foot a day, and it's a 180-foot sewer line. So it took about 6 months. Once they were done with that, the contractor was not able to tie in the sewer line because it did not flow. The new work that was done, it was done correctly, but they did not verify the existing manholes that they were tying into. And so we were having to do this sewer line over again. I will say that this will be done well off the shoulder and should not affect traffic, which is why putting Trade Street into its final pattern is something that we're going to go ahead and do. We also have monolithic islands. That's actually a mistake. I would probably want to put that item probably back into back where we are putting Trade Street into its final pattern, because once we make Trade Street 4 lanes, there's probably going to be well, not going to be, it will be dangerous to make a left from Brenham Lane out onto Trade Street heading towards Weddington Road. And so we will probably put that monolithic island in to disallow left-hand turns from Brenham Lane onto southbound Trade Street. We also have the final lift of asphalt where we will be putting down the final layer of asphalt for the entire project and the final pavement markings and signing. Next slide, please. How will these items affect the traffic? The contractor allows the contractor to install lane closures from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. However, the items in the roadway, the items that I just mentioned to you, will probably most likely be done at night to ensure better production for the contractor and a better product. And of course, this will also be better for the traveling public as well. When will we be complete with the project? We are looking at early spring for 2021 to be completely done. And you may ask yourself why is that? Why do these last items take so long? In reality, they don't. But when you're coming up on winter, some of these items like the final lift of asphalt and the final pavement markings, our standards and specifications preclude a contractor from doing these activities during the winter months. And so yet again, another reason why we need to go ahead and put Trade Street into its final pattern to alleviate the congestion. And so the facility, the Trade Street itself, will have will at least have its functionality as intended. And the next slide has my contact information and Jeff's contact information. But at this time, I'll also take questions from anyone who has any questions.
I have a question. Maybe it's somewhat of maybe more of a comment, but I know stuff happens, but how does a pipeline that's being dug a foot a day go 180 days of being dug before someone figures out that it's in the wrong location? I just can't imagine that. I mean, what kind of oversight do we have on this project?
Well, the pipe that was installed is in the right location. That's not the issue at all. Okay. It's the manholes that were that already exist that we're tying into. The elevations that were provided in the plans are incorrect, and it actually states in our plans that the contractor is to field verify these elevations to make sure that it will flow. Well, he did not do that. They did not do that, and so this is why we're a reason why we're in the situation that we're in, at least with the sewer lines.
Okay, and the other, question I have is, we're saying spring of 21. Is that, you feel pretty solid about that? Because I've been telling people next spring for a couple of years now. Is that going to happen?
I do feel fairly confident in that. Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to hold you to it. Are there any questions? Commissioner Miller.
Thank you. Brian, you and I have exchanged a few emails through the years, and we've met on site. The Boyke family, which lives on the corner, the first house on the left on Brenham Lane, are very frustrated in that they've been under construction, or their yard has been part of your temporary right-of-way for 2.5 years or thereabouts. They want to put a fence up, and you said they need sufficient vegetation, and you said it looks sufficient, but you have to wait until it's all over with. If the sidewalk is being used and the guardrails are already up and they own up till within 6 inches of the guardrails, the handrails along the sidewalk, is there a logical reason why they can't put their fence up sometime soon?
The only reason, and really the only reason why I would discourage that is because I mean, there's always a chance that we could have a drought, and that grass die, and that slope start to erode and head cut, and in which case I would ask my contractor to go and fix it, and seed it again, and where they want to put their fence, and I've read Mrs. Boyke's reply to the email chain that you and I have had, and I think probably the best thing is for me and you and Mrs. Boyke and my supervisor to meet. I would be willing to do that again and see if there's anything that we can do. But I guess the short answer is if for any reason that we have to get on that slope between now and the end of the project, my fear is that once we put a piece of equipment on that slope and it gets down to the bottom of that slope or the toe of that slope where the Boykes want to put their fence, they're gonna nick it, and they're gonna damage it, kind of like we damaged the sign. And I don't want that to happen, especially after the Boykes have been waiting this long. So I think probably the best thing to do is for me to get my supervisor and we meet with the Boykes and see if and I'll go ahead and talk with my supervisor to see if there's anything I can do, if I'm thinking about this correctly, just to double check behind me.
And I guess my other question is, this greenway is supposed to go under Trade Street. It would have been nice if it was coordinated about at the same time. However, when you guys are complete, the drilling or boring of a hole or a tunnel under Trade Street is going to happen for the extension of the greenway. And the greenway is in the Boykes side of the creek. Are they going to get a construction easement with the Korean church, or are they going to tunnel through from the other side? Do you have any knowledge of that?
I don't, Commissioner Miller.
I don't either.
What you don't either, Jeff?
No. We can look into it though. See what's out.
What I would like, because I'm probably going to be the resident engineer on that project too. What I would like to do is I would like to be able to access the pedestrian walkway and the sewer easement that runs along the backside of the Boykes yard. That's what I would like to do. If you recall what I'm talking about, there's a bollard or a couple of bollards that are up on that pedestrian path. I would like to access that pedestrian path and then from there access the sewer easement to be able to drill, or either that or better yet, dig from the other side.
Either one is acceptable as long as you don't have to go down their side yard again. Yeah, and you would make any repairs to the greenway due to heavy equipment tearing it up, correct? I mean, it's only 75 feet or so before you turn left onto grass, correct?
Yeah, yes, that is what we would do. That would be something that I'm sure we would work out in the municipal agreement. But if I were a contractor, I would access the absurd amount of right of way that we have on the southbound side.
Okay.
And start digging from there.
Well, and the last question, and I'm sorry to take up so many people's time here. What I see on the slope grass planting, sometimes they spray, sometimes they put a net. If it's already been planted, could you not spray over the hand railing versus bringing a netting in?
That depends. When we make the decision to bring in the netting or the matting there, the matting is used primarily for two reasons. One is if you have a really steep slope, that a slope that is, it would be questionable whether or not you'd be able to hold grass. That matting holds the seed in place and make sure it gets down into the soil and allows the seed to germinate. And so that is that's typically why we use that. Would we be able to, if we had to do the whole slope over again, let's say I imagine that we would, especially as we get towards Brenham. Well, no, I take that back because it starts to flatten out. As we get towards the culvert, towards the back of their yard, I would probably map that again. If it has to be messed with at all.
Okay, thank you. I just want to urge us to cooperate and work with each other because that family wants to put up a fence and get some of their privacy back and continue their gardening.
I understand.
I know Commissioner Urban has a question. I just have a comment to what Commissioner Miller said. You know, you may want to consider, I don't know if this is possible, but putting up a temporary fence or just something for privacy that could be easily taken down again if need be. Commissioner Urban, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I guess, Hazen, do we have any skin in the game for this particular section of the project?
We do not. We do have skin in the game for the culvert, though, us in the county.
So are there penalties for delays and stuff like that revolving around the culvert?
Yes. Yes, that is correct. To date, they've been assessed well over $300,000.
And is that prorated to our share involved in the culvert?
Commissioner Urban, I misspoke. The culvert is the road project. We're talking about a tunnel. So we're.
Oh, you're talking about the Greenway
tunnel with the county.
Okay.
Okay.
So we just end up with frustration, no money. Okay. Thank you.
But you know, I think the light of it, and this is news to me, hopefully to everybody, two and a half months. If it feels like it's completed, that's half the battle. I think all the orange cones and the lane shifting. I guess what I say to the DOT guys, I hope that you can make it look as completed as possible. And some of these other things are being done, I guess, behind the scenes so that the general public, because you guys probably have heard this before, people fuss to the town. They think the town is in control. We keep telling them it's not us. But if Maureen Keith's on the line, social media, we get bombarded with complaints about this.
And Hazen, you guys just feel free to put them on to my office. Yep.
Appreciate it, Brian.
Well, Brian and Jeff, we appreciate everything NCDOT does for us, but this particular project has become a real burr in everyone's saddle. I get a call or a text or an email or a comment at the grocery store at least 2 or 3 times a week about this project every single week, year round. So anything you can do to expedite it and get it moving along, we would be very grateful. Are there any other questions or comments? Well, thank you, Jeff and Brian. We appreciate you doing the presentation tonight, and we look forward to seeing that bridge completed soon, we hope.
Sure, thank you.
Let's move on to item 14A, new business. Consider request from the American Legion regarding veteran-related improvements at Stumptown Park. Mr. Tafano.
Good evening. I'm coming to you tonight as commander of the Matthews American Legion Post, and also can you see me, by the way? It keeps coming up and saying that I can't start the video.
We see your presentation and a photograph of you, or you're being very still.
All right, well, we'll go with this. Okay. Let me try. Every time I try starting the video, it says, all right. So what this is a very positive, uplifting project that really entails every part of the community. And this is a project that goes to the heart of what it is in Matthews to be veteran friendly and support the veterans. There's a part of Stumptown Park, if you would advance, Lori, thank you. The Stumptown Park Veterans area has fallen into disrepair over the years. And it just is not the place that we want it to be as veterans, and I'm sure not the place that the town wants it to be, to present a respectful and honorable tribute to the people that have perished for us and our country. So what we've done is we've segmented this as a scope into 4 parts. In other words, the vision for this particular park is broken up into what the wall is, and that's where the current rotary wall is. And then there's a garden area, which we'll get into, and a plaza, and also the entrance. Now, before I go any further, though, I want to say that I'm coming to you after many weeks of working with all of the departments and the advisory committees. For instance, I have personally walked the park in this Veterans Memorial area with Debbie Foster from Appearance and Tree, Life Fitzpatrick, Ralph Ramsar, Scott Rawls, Tom Cannon from the advisory committee, the Veterans Advisory Committee, as well as Howie Lambinar from the Parks and Rec. And then I've had numerous conversations with Corey King as well. So I'm coming to you to give you a concise synopsis of what it is that we've been discussing for the last 5 or 6 weeks and where we're going to go. So this particular concept is being brought together by actually the veterans themselves, but we've been blessed with having a landscape designer, Lisa Tompkins, which you probably are familiar with because I understand she's done some work for the town before. And also, we've gotten the arts community involved. Eileen Schwartz, who's an artist here in town.
Suspected to be a sensitive military site in Iran. The latest occurred yesterday morning in western Tehran and caused widespread power outages. As of now, it remains unclear.
That was my reporting voice. I was just reporting on Middle Eastern affairs. So I'll just get right back to the presentation. That was a joke, by the way. Okay. So anyway, we've got the veterans group that happens to be also part of the arts community. And we've had Don Estes, who's a Vietnam veteran, do some conceptual drawings for us, which you'll see in a moment. But I just wanted to make sure you realize that a lot of legwork's already been done in terms of what we want to do with this veterans area. So if you would advance, I want to talk about the scope of this project. This shot was taken where the Love artwork is. And the scope of this project goes all the way from the Love artwork entrance all the way up to the left part of the current Rotary Club wall. Next slide, please. Okay, so on the left is a still shot of the way it currently is. It's just nothing but dirt and a very soiled wall. And also because of vegetation death over a period of time, there's just viewing the back of the Exxon station. And so this in itself is just, as far as a veteran's concerned, and as far as someone who wants to honor those that have died for us, this is not acceptable. And so it was because of this and the other sections of the park that we took it upon ourselves as the American Legion to initiate this project. So the drawing on the right is with what Don has done. If you'll advance one more, you'll get an idea of what we're trying to accomplish. So 2 feet back from the existing wall, there'll be another wall which will hide not only the back of the Exxon station, but also will serve as a backdrop for 5 military service flags and the POW MIA flag. Of course, the wall will be properly cleaned and restored. And then in front of the wall will be a paver brick pathway, which is not correctly shown here, but I just wanted to put it here for conceptual purposes, that'll have inscribed bricks for those that have fallen that are associated with Matthews or with a resident of Matthews. So if you can go on to the next. Okay, the next area to the right of the wall is what we're calling the Memorial Garden. And if you advance, please, Lori. Now, this area will have monuments that would be informative monuments that children and adults could travel through. It'll be well lit and give them informative information about each of the major conflicts that the United States has been in the last 100 years. And so these will be quite large. They'll be probably 3.5 feet high. They won't look this way because they're actually 3-dimensional and the face is at a slight angle for reading purposes. But this will be a very lovely, quiet, peaceful place that people can understand what has happened with the residents and the veterans of Matthews throughout all these conflicts. On next slide, please. Okay, this area we're calling the plaza, and it entails the flagpole and along with the sculpture that was placed there about, a year and a half ago. Next slide, please. So in order to also hide the expressway, the Exxon station, we're putting up a mural wall. Now, this mural wall will not have a mural on it until it goes through the normal process of mural decision making and also community input. But we're trying to make it so that it's always, no matter what we do, regardless if it's contractors or artists or landscape people, everybody is from Matthews and they have a stake in Matthews. Can you go on, please, Lori? Thank you. Now, right here at the entrance, about the only thing that we're going to do here is to the right of the entrance, we're going to put a wayfinder sign that will be lit at night. And while we're talking about that, the entire area will be redone in terms of electrical and also in irrigation. Continue on, please, Lori. Now, the good part for the town is there won't be any funds requested of the town. Everything will be funded by the Matthews Veterans Memorial Fund, and that fund will be administered by the American Legion. And it's going to be supplied with numerous contributions from individuals and businesses. And also, one thing I want to make sure that I give credit. The Veterans Advisory Committee has already reviewed this and has voted unanimously to approve it and has already allocated its funds to purchase the flags and flagpoles for the veterans flags. Continue on, Lori. Another wonderful part about this, and something that is actually really uplifting, and especially in these days and times, by gosh, we need this sort of thing, is where the entire town comes together in order to do something really meaningful and will have a lasting impact on Matthews. One of the things that I am very excited about is Memorial Garden is going to be completed by Eagle Scouts. We already have 2 Eagle Scouts that have committed their project for this, and we have 4 more that are about to sign up, and they will be totally responsible for working under the guidance of the landscape architect to build and complete that entire area. And also the artwork is obviously going to be created by Matthews residents. So if we can go on, please. What we'd like to do is start construction at the first part of August. We've already spoken with contractors. We haven't finalized any contractual deals, but we are waiting for this presentation and some additional discussions with Parks and Rec. We want to be finished by Veterans Day because we want to make Veterans Day a very, very special ceremony. Not only because of what it is for, but also to use it as the grand opening of the new Matthews Veterans Memorial. Lori, please. Thank you. So what is it that, why am I here? And why am I presenting if we've gone through all of this pre-legwork? It's because I would like to have the blessing of the board in order for me to carry on a working relationship that Corey and I have constructed together on how this project is going to unfold over the next couple of months. And I just think personally that it is one of those types of projects that is, well, it just comes along once in a lifetime in my lifetime. And I am just so excited about it. The people that have been at the park with me and walked through the park with me are super excited about it. And everybody's just waiting to chomp in and get to be part of this. So I'm asking that you, as the Board of Commissioners, vote if this is the proper way to do it, to support the American Legion in its effort to work with the town in order to bring this to fruition. So I thank you very much for the opportunity to present this extraordinary project to you, and I'll open it for questions.
Mark, you mentioned to me another portion of this would be restoring the flagpole or polishing it or something like that.
Yeah. So I have to give you a little bit of history. On Memorial Day, we actually tried to lower the flag to half-mast, and we couldn't because the tree had grown into the flagpole, and the flags, the American flag and the North Carolina flag, were so tattered and torn and wrapped around the branches that we couldn't bring it down. Ralph Ramser jumped on that right away, had a contractor come out and trim the tree back, and Life had 2 new flags put up literally within a couple of days. But there's some polishing up work that needs to be done. The actual flagpole itself, the bronze plaque at the base of the flagpole, there's some masonry work that needs to be completed. And also the entire place needs to be cleaned and pressure cleaned.
So obviously a very ambitious project that needs our approval to go forward. And I think it would be best to have a vote or someone to make a motion, or if there are any questions or comments on the project first.
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Okay, Joe.
I'll make a motion that we approve the request from the American Legion regarding veteran-related improvements at Stumptown Park as shown in the YouTube link and the presentation by Mark Tefano tonight.
Second. Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Miller, a second from, I heard Commissioner McCool first. Sorry, Larry. Any other Hazen, is there anything you want to say about this? Any concerns from the town or?
Corey,
No?
are you good?
No concerns. I mean, we've already committed to do some of the stuff like the flagpole and the masonry, but I mean, it's all part of the big plan. So no comments.
I like this because I think it'd definitely be an improvement and it doesn't cost us anything. So if it's free, it's good. Mr. Bland.
I just want to be sure that, Charlie, we don't have to have, this is not something that's got to be noticed or anything like that. We can do this now and decide this now, right?
That's correct.
I just want to be sure we weren't stepping on our own shoes.
No, that's a good question, but no, we're fine. It's on the agenda, so we're fine.
Good.
And Corey, you are good with it?
Yeah, Mark and I've had some good conversations. We're provided answers to some questions recently, and we were assured that even though we have no desire to manage this project, we're comfortable with them, taking the lead on it, but just ensuring that we're still involved with the project and some of the other details. Example, selection of plants, those small things.
Sure.
That we're still involved with it, especially Ralph Ramshaw, and again, the plan, he has an aggressive schedule, but there are some planning things. I guess it will need to be done, especially with the 5-foot wall. And again, those assurances that we'll have it well designed and I guess constructed to the design makes me feel good. Oh, I guess if we can keep that promise.
Okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Miller, a second from Commissioner McCool. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland?
Yay.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yay.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Mark, I'll encourage you to still work closely with town so that we're in step with one another. But thank you for this ambitious project and good luck.
Well, thank you very much for your vote and for your confidence. Good night.
Right.
Good night.
Let's move on to item 14B, consider acceptance of Governor's Highway Safety Program grant for the Police Department. Chief Pennington.
You're muted, Chief.
All right. Can you hear me now? Say, but I'll go back through it again. I do have some exciting news. We met and spoke on January 13th in reference to a request I brought before the board to seek approval to apply for a grant process through Governor's Highway Safety Program. The focus of that grant is to increase the safety of the town of Matthews through our traffic enforcement and traffic safety efforts. So that grant request that we spoke about on January 13th was a partial grant, or a partial reimbursement grant, I should say. So it's 85% the first year of staffing. And in that request, there was a request for 2 additional police officers to focus on traffic enforcement in the town. But there was 100% reimbursement from the grant for 2 vehicles. And if you look at the memo you have in front of you, I do apologize. It's 2 vehicles, each of them costing $35,000. So that's a total of $70,000 for number 1. And then it does allow us to buy computers for the new cars, allows us 100% reimbursement for LiDAR, which is a speed measuring device, a radar, which is also a speed measuring device, and also in-car video camera systems. Up to in that line item for $12,000. So training costs is also a requirement under the grant that our employees would attend a highway safety program training cycle, if you will. So they're going to get additional training in highway safety. But this is a huge opportunity for the town. We have not been awarded a grant from the Governor's Highway Safety Program since 2001. It's been that long since they have put their faith in us to kind of follow through. So I'm really excited about this opportunity here today. Total grant reimbursements, I see that it says they're about $415. My math may be off, but I'll just tell you it's a whole lot of dollars. It's $85 for the first year for all salaries and fringe benefit reimbursement. And then the second year, it is 70%. And then the third year is 50%. I will tell you that then the grant at that point becomes renewable. The renewal of that is at 50% of the employees for the next 3 years, and again renewable and again renewable. So there's an opportunity for us to see this, should we remain in good graces and do exactly what the grant requires of us and our reporting requirements, to see this thing continue on and to help out offset some of the costs of obviously the increase in staffing that we are well in need of.
Thank you, Chief Pennington. Great job in securing this grant. I think it's, from my perspective, a no-brainer to vote to accept it and the rules that govern it. I have one somewhat mildly related question. The LiDAR and radar, from a safety perspective to the officers themselves. I recall back when Commissioner Whitley was on the highway patrol, there were cases of officers getting brain cancer and things from the radar being next to their head all day. Is that still a concern at all?
I don't even know if that was an actual concern. I know there was some discussion about that, but these radar units are fully encased. The two different systems. So a LiDAR unit is a point-specific target. So it is a laser, if you will, that goes out, hits an item, and comes back. So it is item-specific. A radar unit sends out more of a wave of radar to then be bounced back to the unit. So the radar units will be used as like moving radar, and the LiDAR units will be used more as stationary type capturing devices.
Okay, it's very late, so I'll stop asking unrelated questions. Are there any comments for Clark before we? Yes, Commissioner Urban.
I had talked to Clark earlier, and he was to research. He was looking for a number of personnel over the course of the last year or so. We have 4 already on board. We're talking about 2 more. Where's the delta in the big picture for the town's police department in the personnel status?
Okay, just to provide a little backstory on this. So in 2018, the board approved the funding of a workload analysis study. So the workload analysis study did an in-depth review of our police department in the amount of personnel that we have based on not only just population, but workload, right? Because, a number of 2.3, which is the national average, if you will, for police departments based on 1,000 population, we want to look at, is that really an accurate number for an agency our size, or do we need to look at workload? So we came up with a 60-40 split. Our officers should be dedicated to 60% of their time to responding to calls for service and 40% of their time as a reactive response to problems within their beats, which goes along with this stratified policing model. Under that very long study that was done, and I did present to the board back then when it was done, they came up with, aside from our civilian staffing, they did request and recommend a few civilian additions, and we have taken steps to fill some of those civilian staffing positions, but they also recommended 9 additional police officers to bring us up to an area that our agency should be at for our size, our population, and our workload. With the addition of the 4 officers in FY20, obviously adding these 2 puts us at 6. We would still be 3 down from the minimum staffing that workload analysis showed we should be sitting at. So the good thing about this grant is it offsets the costs and the need that the town would have to spend to get us to that number that the workload analysis said we should be at, and the state is helping us offset that and assisting us with acquired staffing.
Right. I could just add, I've spent probably more time than Chief Pennington once with him lately, going to various meetings, etc. But one of the things we discussed was our inability to do training. We don't have adequate time in the day for our officers to do training. So they're doing training on Saturdays and extra shifts and Sundays. And it's really making the job of already stressful job of being a police officer even more stressful. So I know our budget's really tight, but this seems like something we should jump on with so much of it, of the grant funding, and in a couple of years, let's find the money, but we're going to need at least 2 officers, I'm sure, in 3 years from now. And Clark would probably like to hire a few more. So.
And since you opened the door, sir, I'd like to just also push that training perspective. We've been talking a lot about our policies, our procedures, what we need to do with de-escalation training, CIT response model training. You know, our staffing model does not allow us to do the amount of training that is absolutely required of a professional organization and to provide the level of service that you guys and our citizens demand. Are we doing a great job at it? Absolutely. I've sat before you and I've told you we're doing it on extra shifts. We're doing it where we bring them in, where we're taking away from maybe their families to get extra training. But ultimately, this staffing model will help us get a little bit closer to what that workload analysis study showed.
Commissioner Miller, you had a question, sir.
Yes, thank you. Chief, help me understand on this memo, are we accepting it or are we applying for it? It's a tentative grant approval. At what stage are we in on that, Chief?
Yeah, that's a great question. And unfortunately, that's the terminology. It is the email I got was congratulations, quote, congratulations, the North Carolina Highway Safety Program has approved your agency to begin the next phase. What the next phase is what we're doing here today. They require a commitment from the town that we are going to fund this because there have been towns that have gotten these grants and not funded it fully and ultimately defaulted, if you will, within the grant. And then they don't get to take advantage of that grant. They want a commitment from the board and a signature from Hazen that says we're going to move forward with this. That's the next phase, but it is approved. We will get this if you guys move forward today.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, sir.
We consider accepting the Governor's Highway Safety Program grant from the police department to move to town manager Hazen Blodgett to sign that we move forward to receive this grant.
Had you not made that motion, I was going to ask you to. Thank you, Commissioner Whitley. Do we have a second?
I wore my uniform to make it.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Whitley, a second by Commissioner Urban. We'll take a roll call vote, I think for the last time tonight. Commissioner Bland, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Go get it. Clark,
Thank
go
you all
get
very
it.
much. Thank you. This means a lot to us, and it's our next step forward, so we appreciate it.
Good job.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Hazen.
Chief gets credit. Commissioner.
All right, we'll move on. Be done here shortly, I hope. I just have a couple items for the mayor's report. I'd like to report that one of those meetings that Clark and I attended together was a panel discussion on the 7th with New Beginnings Community Church over in Mint Hill. It included, was moderated by Dr. Michael Henderson, who's the lead pastor there, and police captains Tim Ledford from Mint Hill, Clark, and Johnny Jennings, who's the new Charlotte Police Department chief, who had been on the job, by the way, for 6 days when he did this panel discussion, as well as myself and Mayor Brad Simmons from Mint Hill. And it was community and race relations, mostly targeted or addressed to the police chiefs, but I think it was a really nice discussion, and I appreciate Chief Pennington making himself available for that sort of discussion. It went really well. I think it made Matthew shine in a very good light. That was a videotaped presentation that I'm told was ultimately watched by thousands of people. So Clark, you did a great job at that. Appreciate it. And then the only final thing I have is just a final reminder, if you want to participate in the giving to the Matthews Helping Matthews campaign, a couple of you have done so. If you can get check, cash, or money order to Lori really soon, like by tomorrow, or if it's going to be later, let me know. If you'd like to participate, of course, it's totally voluntary, but go ahead and do that, and we'll make sure those funds are turned over to that campaign. They have a goal of 100,000 to date. They've raised about 65,000, so they're trying to get the last home stretch of 35,000 knocked out. That's all I have. Attorney's report. Charlie, do you have anything?
I have no report, Mayor, but you do have one more vote, contrary to what you said a minute ago.
What's that?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, Town manager, do you have a report?
Yes, sir. I do have one thing. So when you guys adopted the budget ordinance, the staff made a mistake. You talked about the $25,000 coming out of 2 line items in risk management and going into Idlewild Volunteer Fire Department. Everybody agreed to that. However, the budget ordinance didn't reflect that. And so the budget didn't reflect that. So, well, maybe the budget ordinance may have reflected that. I know the final budget didn't. So I do have the authority to change money within departments, which is 2 departments. However, I have to make a report to the board. So I wanted to make this report to the board that we are going to transfer money out of risk management, $25,000, and transfer it into the fire department for Idlewild. And then Lori will have a record of this in the minutes. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Hazen, could I ask you to bring up one more thing? And I want to be totally transparent. I mean, I'm being asked to sign lots of proclamations whenever deemed necessary, if it's not just something that's a slam dunk like the one we discussed tonight. I want to make sure that you guys hear about what I'm being asked to sign on behalf of the town and get some feedback. Hazen, do you want to mention what you heard on your call?
Yeah, everything's evolving, and so the county COVID group, and on our side, and that's everybody from all over the county, and then Clark, Rob, Becky, Maureen, and Tanya listen from the town side. But what came up today was, these cases are continuing to rise, and everybody's trying to figure out what's. And so we listened to the health department, we listened to the experts from the hospitals. But the latest idea is to close down restaurants after 10 o'clock. So what they're finding is that if you're a restaurant that has a bar in it, you stay open. However, the later it gets, the more people drink, the less they social distance. So one of the ideas was to close the restaurants at 10 o'clock. And the breweries at 10 o'clock with this idea of get people back home, probably before they drink too much, so they social distance less. Now, I would say as a general rule, this is not a problem in Matthews, generally speaking. They're really focused downtown, the Epic Center and South End, a lot of young people down there. But they did want us to talk to the mayor. So I talked to the mayor, and in the case of Matthews, the mayor has the right to sign these proclamations. And then I think the mayor's feedback to me was, can't we move to, as a county, like the whole county, the city and the 6 towns, the city's on board with this stuff. I did talk to some of the other towns. Pineville seems to agree with this. Davidson agrees with this. Mint Hill agrees with this. It looks like Cornelius and Huntersville are not as supportive of this change. So,
if I could just make a comment, the whole idea seemed a little bit odd to me, because it's like people magically don't drink and act irresponsibly until after 10 o'clock, and most of our restaurants are closed, I think, at 11 o'clock. So, just 1 hour really going to make a whole lot of difference. But, I see, some benefit, but I wanted to get some feedback from you guys. I really want to make sure these proclamations and stuff come so fast, and they have literally hours to sometimes to sign these things. So I don't want to, we don't have time to debate them for 3 or 4 days, 5 days. So we know this may be coming up, and I wondered what your thoughts were. I'm not real excited one way or the other. I think it's possibly could help. So okay, but does anybody have any comments?
I do, Mayor. Yeah, I don't think we have a whole lot of restaurants open after 11 o'clock. Maybe on Friday and Saturday, but I know during the weeknight it's not. Most of them close at 10, so that's not a really big deal. Other than on Friday and Saturday night, that's the only concern I do. But then anything that we can do to bring this number down, I'm for that, because our numbers look like they're 11 now, but I'm talking about North Carolina, but you see the numbers in Mecklenburg County. We are the highest county in the state out of 100. But it's the states south of us, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, and I mean it is crazy. And unless we do all that we can now, and it's just got to come to wearing masks. You still go out. Me and my wife go out. We stop and just look at people still not wearing the mask, and it's utterly ridiculous for the sake of saving their family lives and people close to them. But I'm for anything that we can help North Carolina, especially Mecklenburg County, to bring these numbers down.
Mr. Bland.
I agree with a lot with what Larry's saying. And I understand, I think, of course, I'm so old that I don't probably particularly like Ken and Renee would probably straighten me out on the thing. But I noticed that when I came back from a ball game, I was coming through Charlotte because they rerouted the road, and I had no idea what goes on downtown. I am just completely lost. I guess because I'm so out of it. But at 2 o'clock in the morning, I mean, you couldn't cross the street. There were so many people in downtown Charlotte. I suspect that's what they're trying to rein in, because there is absolutely no social distancing at 2 o'clock in the morning in downtown Charlotte, in South End and areas like that. Maybe that's what it's about. I don't see that it really affects us very much. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think it would affect us a whole lot, but the other thing I always try to be cognizant of, I don't want to take money out of our business owners.
Right. What have you heard anything, or is it just?
This just came up. I literally heard about this today, and like I say, this stuff evolves so quickly. It could be tomorrow or the next day. They're asking me to sign that to agree that we close at 10. I just want to get your opinion if you guys are for that or against it. Commissioner Miller.
Being a food service veteran, no matter where I worked, the kitchen usually closes at 10 o'clock, and it's the bar after that, or limited hors d'oeuvres or snacks. I would be cool with 10 o'clock Monday through Sunday through Thursday, and maybe 11 o'clock Friday, Saturday. As everyone already agrees, it won't affect our town too much.
Yeah, I was on a call today with the National Association of Mayors, and I believe it was the mayor of Dayton, Ohio, was saying that a lot of these orders in states don't allow bars to be open, but they let restaurants be open, and restaurants with bars are serving as bars.
Yeah,
they're essentially a bar, and so the bar owners are raising all kind of cane. Why can't I be open when this restaurant down the street's not really serving any food? They're just a bar after 10 o'clock or 11 or whatever.
Yeah.
So, any other comments? I think I'm hearing a consensus from those that spoke that you don't mind if we sign on to that. I haven't. Perhaps we should talk to some of our owners. Does anybody know how late our restaurants stay open? Are they open after 10 anyway?
Well, Seaboard runs COVID hours, and they're only open until 9.
Okay. I think most of our stuff is closed at 10 anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it is.
So this doesn't sound like it would affect us a whole lot. So if I get asked to sign this, I hope you don't have any heartburn if I go ahead and do it. I'm not hearing anybody saying they would. I don't think it would affect us too much.
You may want to check with Texas Roadhouse and some of the restaurants along Independence.
That's a good point. I think I will make a few phone calls, but
yeah,
like I say, this evolves really quickly, and I expect this to come up really quickly, and they'll be saying, sign on, let's go, we're doing it. So whenever I'm made aware of this stuff, I want to make you guys aware as soon as I can.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I have a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion. We adjourn this ship.
Okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Whitley, a second from Commissioner Miller. We're going to take a roll call vote to adjourn. Commissioner Bland.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley.
Last call for alcohol.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
And Commissioner McCool.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. It was a long meeting. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.